Hello everybody. Am I live? I think I'm live. The great challenge, of course, with all live broadcasts is that you never actually know how well things are going. I'm just going to double check that I have clicked every box, and we should have a number of people watching. And let me get rid of that. And guys, I'd like you to post questions with, oh dear, we've got a problem. We have a problem. There's nobody watching, so what do I do? Hello, I don't know. Can you guys see me? I see that people are coming in with comments and everything, but okay, I do have, and I've got a bad health. The streaming says unsupported resolution, so I'm going to do a little bit of fiddling to try and get this going. It's like this every time I do it. There's a different problem every single time I try and do it. And there shouldn't be, but there is. I'm not an expert in this. Sorry, guys. Okay, hello from Arizona. Can you guys actually see me? Somebody tell me, can you actually see me? Yes, your signal's good. You're not, you're even the right way up. So because I'm getting a negative big red dot, unsupported resolution, as if my streaming is not good. The image is not good. Okay, so somebody told me yes, 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 yes. Okay, you can see me, good. All right, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to ignore the funny little red lights. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I can see a lot of you coming in already and lots of messages. Okay, all good. Fantastic. This is such a pain. It's so difficult to know. I don't have a great big TV there with saying, you know, you're live, you know, because it's a delay and everything. Anyway, I'm going to start getting to the questions, and a lot of you have sent me some good questions, and a lot of them about my up-and-coming trip through the United States, North America, and the choice of the Sprinter vehicle. You must understand, it wasn't my choice. Somebody came to me and said, hey, there's a vehicle for you. Would you like to use it? Really? Yeah. Really? Wow, what a generous gesture. And I asked what vehicle it was. It was the six-wheel drive, the four-wheel drive Sprinter van, which I actually, in 2016 was it, probably, I actually investigated and getting one for a trip in the US because I thought, what an interesting platform that is. And I had one driving with me on the Mojave Road, which I did in 2015, and I was very impressed with it. So it's not an off-roader. Now, it's definitely not an off-roader, and it's not a Land Cruiser. But then again, if you think about it, I mean, the furthest northern part in Alaska is Prudhoe Bay, and the weather there is absolutely horrific. I don't want to go camping in weather like that. I just don't want to do it. I have to have protection. So I need I need a camper or a van, I need something where I can get out of the bad weather. And it's not just miserable weather and a bit of rain and a bit of wind. This is hostile, I'll kill you by morning type weather. So I thought that would be a good platform. Also, I'm not going to be driving off-road. I'm going to be driving on-road. Back roads, yes. The Sprinter four-wheel drive is great for back roads. Not necessarily back tracks, but certainly back roads. So I thought it was a good choice. I actually was very positive about it. So a few people have come back. Stefan, he mentioned the other seats are okay, but try and get the Recaros. This has got Recaros. It's got Recaros. The guys have actually fitted it out quite nicely. They've done nothing in the back in the area that I need to live in, but they have done a suspension lift, decent tires, small suspension lift, and it's okay to go, but for the inside, which I will do. And to start getting to some of your questions. Great, I'm getting people from England. That's great, because trying to get you guys, if it's daytime here, it's daytime in America, and in the middle is nighttime as you guys in Europe. So I'm glad that some of the guys from the UK are here. Welcome, everybody. Greetings from Holland. Europe, fantastic. Getting you guys from, watching you from Laghuat, the Algerian Sahara. Oh, that's so exciting. Oh, that's so exciting. Germany, hello from hello Melbourne. Panama, Las Vegas. I love this. Germany, Norway, California, Pacific, Portugal, England, Texas, Norway, Utah, Portugal. The few countries here I haven't been to. Oh, you're really coming through. Uruguay, Alabama, Arizona, Qatar, Auckland, New Zealand. It's going too fast. I have to maximize this window. Maryland, Patagonia. I'm going to be coming your way soon. Ireland, hello Ireland. Melbourne, Philadelphia, British Columbia, Okanagan, British Columbia. South Bend, Indiana. Cape Town, my old home in Cape Town. Colorado, USA. Tasmania. Kent, UK. I was born in Kent. Wyoming. Detroit, Sydney, Melbourne, Pennsylvania. This is getting silly. Hello from Perth. Where are you? No, you're not here. Italy, Santa Cruz, Wyoming, Belgium. That's why we call it an Overland channel. You are absolutely damn right. A few of my competitors are also starting to use that word a bit. Okay. Fantastic. What a lovely spread. 256 of you watching this very minute. Okay, that's absolutely outstanding. Okay, I'm going to start getting to some of the questions. And Florida, Mexico, Germany, Colorado. Hello, everyone. Yes, Bryce. Hello, everyone. From Bryce. Okay. Somebody who's building Luxatronic asked me, he's got a G-Wagon, which is the Nissan Patrol, and he wants to build his own packing system and asks if aluminium frame with carpeted wood would be up to the task. Yes, it would. Little bit of a trick. What wood tends to do when it's screwed together, because you'll be tempted to use self-tapping screws, and that's okay, and when wood gets together and it starts to shake and starts to rattle, it actually makes a terrible noise. Glue it as well. All right, glue it as well. Don't just use self-tappers, because you will find you will find that after a while it'll actually start making a lot of noise. But yeah, and aluminium, if you're going to use aluminium frame, you're going to be tempted to pop rivet. Pop riveting is fine because it's they're the blind rivets. But use a lot of rivets. Use more than you would want to. And if you can get stainless steel rivets, even better. But they're quite hard to pull, but they give a much, much firmer grip. Because remember, once you build it, it will be in good shape. And then after 2 years of being shaken around on Australian corrugations / washboards, it's not going to be that great. So make sure it's rigid and put it together strongly. I'm in Colorado and I'm building a Tacoma for off-road. Okay, air filters. This is from Thomas. Do I use extra air filters? Here's the thing with air filters. A sandpaper air filter is actually okay for pretty tough, dusty conditions. If it's extreme, yes, you can get the K&N filters they're reusable. You can clean them, you oil them. Get the proper oil. Okay, don't think you can use any old oil. Get the proper K&N oil. It has specific properties. But for example, my Land Cruiser, the air filter is not very good in that vehicle. And in a lot of it, and I don't know the Tacomas, but a lot of air filters will be substandard for extreme use. And the way to test is if you do a trip and you look around and when you take out the air filter, take it out very, very carefully and see if there's any spillage around the seal. And you'll see it by a little line of sand, not sand, dust. Very, very, very fine test. Very, very fine line around the seal. And if you get that, you know that that's a problem. But the problem here is not the paper. The problem here is the actual seal and the box. So just by changing the air filters to the K&N, yes, it'll be an upgrade. It will only solve a dust problem if the dust problem is caused by the paper itself, not if there's any spillage caused by an not so great design. I've actually been looking into doing an upgrade on my air filters on my Land Cruiser because they're a little bit substandard. And it's so sad because the 1HZ, my old troop carrier, my old Land Cruisers had this, I mean, it was this round. It was this round air filter thing that you just dropped in. They were quite expensive, but you could do an entire trip without even thinking about the air filters. They were really good. They were properly designed for less developed countries, and I wouldn't even dream about upgrading them. Just drop in a filter and change it after a long trip. Done. I can't really do that anymore. Got to pay a little bit more attention, but that's the way. Just think about that. Fearless on 4 wheels. They're traveling in Africa with a Toyota Hilux D4D pop-up camper. They have broken the back springs. What shocks do you recommend? Big ones. To put it simply, so let me just, what happens with a leaf spring? Now the Hilux is like the Tacoma. It has, you probably already know, but it has a very similar suspension system to the Tacoma, rear leaf springs. What happens mostly when a leaf spring breaks, it actually doesn't break on compression. It actually breaks on as the wheel actually drops. So now you've got a lot of load on the spring, and then suddenly it shoots down like this, okay, and then is caught. And often that's what snaps the spring. The sudden change, it goes all the way down. It's under maximum stress, actually, when there's no load on it. And then suddenly changes to load. And then it breaks, because as it hits, it comes back up, and it's actually sitting in a very curved, and that's quite common. That's the most common. So what you've actually got to do is you've got to get a big shock absorber, because a larger shock absorber will be better in rebound. It'll stop that thing going down, not coming up, because coming up is really for ride comfort. You don't want to bottom the suspension. So as the spring comes up, you need a shock absorber, obviously, to slow it down and control it. But what mostly happens with a very overloaded vehicle, and the pop-up camper on the back of a Hilux is going to work that Hilux to the absolute max. So be aware that you're probably, if you're traveling in Africa, I'm assuming you haven't had a upgrade on the GVM and things like that. So you're basically stressing the vehicle out. You've got to stop that axle dropping. And I remember it was a big problem with early Land Rover, when I say big problems, guys who are really using these vehicles very heavily laden in very rough country. They would snap rear springs because of this very reason. And they actually attached straps. They were made from a strap about this wide, and I actually saw some of them actually made of canvas. And they strapped them to stop the axle dropping, to actually arrest it, to stop it dropping too far, getting to the point, and also stopping it bottoming the shock. Because if it bottoms the shock, it'll pull the shock bottom out of the shock extremely quickly. So if it's getting close to the bottom of the shock, also, it's not an efficient position for the shock to be. Shocks work better kind of in the middle of their range. They can extend, it's not, but it's just when they're right at the end of their range. Again, you're just overstressing all the different components. So you want to kind of have most of the work done in the middle. Think about straps, and think about a shock absorber that you can set. Because you want to set it hard. You want to stop that spring from dropping too fast. What manufacturer? Overland Emu is not a bad shock, but I think that probably you're not going to get the performance you need from an Overland Emu. I would probably go for a Coney Raid. They're better than the Overland Emu shock absorbers. They're more expensive, but they will do a better job. All right. Toms. All right. Oh, one more. I just want to go. Evo Cab asked me about tires and how much can it affect performance and fuel economy. That's a story all on its own. You're going to have to watch some of my videos about, but a bit. And tires affect economy mostly in two particular ways when you're overland. On the long run, on the tar, if you've got very, very wide tyres, and particularly mud terrain type tyres, they are less efficient. They have a higher rolling resistance on hard surface, and therefore they use more fuel. How much more fuel? Up to 5%, easily up to 5%. I've seen with mine, it's probably about 2%. With the KO2 versus the BFG KM3, which I've now just taken off my vehicle. More about that later, but you'll probably talk about 2%. Okay, so that's pretty average. In terms of fuel economy, off-road, not big, but what does affect fuel economy enormously off-road, and I'm talking 30% plus, and that is tire pressures off-road. If you're running in soft ground and your tire pressures are hard, you can easily add 30% onto your fuel consumption, very easily. All right, let's go back to Tom's. He's building an overland vehicle on a tight budget. What vehicles on the less expensive side can you recommend? Okay, I'm looking at the Suzuki Jimny. Okay, the Jimny, quite a few people have asked me, please review the Jimny. I don't think I'm going to. Look, the Jimny is tiny. It's a very, very tiny, it's like a weekend fun four-wheel drive. It's not an overlander. It can't be an overlander. It just cannot carry what you need. It's a little weekender. But I haven't actually driven one. I've sat in one. I've not actually even driven with somebody with one. So I don't know too much about it. So I don't really know too much about the Jimny. What used vehicle would I go for? I would probably be extremely boring and dull and say go for a Hilux. Or if you want to be a little bit more adventurous, I would go for an early Discovery. They cost pennies. They're amazing off-road. They're enormous fun to drive. They do cost more than, say, a similar age Toyota to run and to operate and to maintain. But what great fun they are. And they're cheap as chips. They'll be cheaper than the Hilux. So, yeah, Discovery. It's a lovely vehicle, as long as you can find one without rust. And I'd assume from Latvia, the rust issues are a big issue. And what do I think about electric vehicles? They are the future. Electric overlanding, the moment they can get a range of 1,000 kilometers out of an electric vehicle, you've got an electric overlander. And I will be the first person to go and drive one. The first. I think they're a way away. I might not even see it in my lifetime. Prashant. Thank you for your inspiring stories. Thank you, Prashant. I have a 90 G-Wagon for my daily driver. What is your thoughts on the G-Wagon as an overland platform? The G-Wagon 461 series vehicle is a superb overland platform. A couple of reasons why. It's extremely strong. It can carry a good payload. You can carry lots of extra fuel. You can carry, which payload means overlanding if you think about it. You want a vehicle to be able to carry a payload over really rough ground and stay in one piece. The G-Wagon is one of those. Compared to the Lexus, okay, but not like all good overland vehicles have lousy turning radiuses. Every single one of them. The better it is at overlanding, the worse the turning radius. So you've got to decide where are you, because Prashant said, I find the turning radius, especially compared to the Lexus GX series. Yeah. But the Lexus GX series is based on a shopping trolley car. I mean, it's a mum's shopping car. Of course it's going to be better. And you can't really compare the two. Although the Lexus GX is a pretty impressive vehicle, but the fuel consumption is pretty terrible. In fact, the worst fuel consumption I've ever actually driven on any particular trip was the GX 470 Lexus. We were getting 12 miles per gallon average. Yeah, sorry, that's almost twice what I get on my Land Cruiser. I've measured it in miles per gallon. It's close to 20. Okay. Please, you're going to build a Sprinter van. This is James. Crosswinds. Thank you, James, for telling me that. You've got a Sprinter van. Be careful of crosswinds. Suspension upgrades. I don't know because I'm not familiar with that vehicle. I'll know in a year's time. But yeah, you're going to have to find Sprinter owners to answer that question for you. Roller has got an FJ Cruiser, and I had somebody else asking me earlier about an FJ Cruiser and was it good as a weekend overlander? It is the perfect weekend overlander. It is the perfect example. It's got just enough room to put your stuff in. The later ones had a bigger fuel tank, and the first early ones had actually like a thimble for a fuel tank. But it's enormous fun to drive. You can chuck stuff on the roof. Guys who are building the FJs, and I know 2 guys locally who have got gorgeous FJ. I mean, I think the FJ is an absolutely stunning vehicle. And driving it's just pure driving. It's a fantastic car to drive. It's a very impressive car to drive. But it is a bit cramped. So for 2 people as a major overlander, it's a bit cramped and the payload is a bit limited. But you can work around it. As a weekend overlander, can't think of anything better. In fact, you can take it stock. That's the great part about it. You just take it stock. You don't have to do a thing. It's one of those few vehicles where you don't actually have to do. The trouble is with the FJ Cruiser, it looks so damn good that you want to spend money on it. You just want to throw money at this thing because it's just sitting there in the garage, kind of all cute. You know, sit up and beg and say, spend money on me. Look at me. I don't want to be even cuter. Philippe asked me, when is the best moment to sell your 4x4 and buy another one? When you're tired of it. When you stop looking at it in the garage or at a campsite and you look around and you go, yeah. That's one reason. There are others. When it's not delivering because your needs have changed. So now we're traveling with just your partner and now you're traveling with kids as well. That could be a need, that could be... And this brings me up to another point. In the build of the Land Cruiser, I missed out the most important principle of all. And I'm not going to give it to you now, but it's along these lines. The video will be coming out on, what's today? It'll be coming out on Thursday. And it's the most important of all of the principles. And that is, I'll give you a clue, that is your specific needs. But I've got a process that I use when I'm building vehicles for clients. We Skype first, and we'll have an hour and a half. And I basically will ask these. I've got some quite specific questions, so I'm going to share those questions with you on how to get to that point, to understand what your needs are, to actually understand them. And you've actually got to go through this process to understand them. It's quite an interesting process. I have this is Mark. I have a 2008 F-150 Super Cab. I want to use it touring around North America. He has a basic aluminium canopy at the back. Okay, that's a difficult one. You've got to pick up. You want to live out of it. You have to build a camper or buy a camper type thing. It's about all I can really do because I understand what you want to do. You actually want to be able to live out of it. It's the old thing. If the weather gets lousy, you actually want to be able to step out of it. So you either have to build a ground tent that can protect you, which is feasible, which is absolutely feasible, but it obviously is a bit of work, but it's feasible and might be the best option for you, or you build some kind of camper. And Mark asked me, what are your thoughts about making a pop-up camper like the one you have on your Troopy? I live in the US and I have a Land Cruiser 100. Would this work on a Land Cruiser 100? My answer to that is I don't think so. The reason why is because in 2011, when I developed the Hercules, their pop-up camper, which I now have and I had on both my troop carriers, I had the Alucab, I had an idea that it would be just for the Troopy. Alucab had an idea after we'd built it that it might fit on other vehicles, and they got hold of a Land Cruiser 60 series. And they tried to fit it onto a Land Cruiser 60 series, which basically 4-door wagon with the same lifting doors for other vehicles. And they couldn't make it work. They couldn't make it work. A good 100 series Land Cruiser, don't cut it. don't cut it. Land Cruiser, the Land Cruiser in the United States, you're so short of good overland vehicles. The Land Cruiser 100 series is one of those that you've got that, and to find nice ones with low mileage is difficult. It's really, really difficult. So I'm suggesting to you, I'm going to just go do a quick job here. I'm going to now look under, I made a little mistake in my panic this morning. I always try and do a separate post to my Patreons, and I didn't do that, so I'm going to do that very, very quickly this morning, and then I'm going to get straight back to your to the Patreons. There you go. Right, I'm going to go back to some of the questions you guys have got. I'm actually going to put it onto this page over here so I can address the camera. All right, I'm going to scroll back a little bit, try and pick up some questions. Yeah, early disco TDI definitely going to be cheap opera once you deal with any outstanding mechanicals. Absolutely agree with you, David. It's a great beginner's off-road vehicle, and they are cheap as chips. In fact, in the US, you guys can buy them for nothing. I've seen them there that you can literally buy them for $1,000, and actually quite a good one. But this is my advice with that though. If you are a beginner to overlanding and you really want to do this, but you really don't have a lot of money, then get to the point where you can work on your vehicle yourself. Because if you can't work on the vehicle yourself, you are going to be you're going to have to send it out, and then you're going to buy an inexpensive vehicle and not be able to fix it yourself, and it's going to cost you a fortune, and that could discourage you from doing the whole thing. But that's why a Land Rover Discovery is so good, because you can buy it for chips, but as long as you can work on it yourself, and obviously try and get a good one, and hopefully you won't have. But the kind of trouble you'll have with it, if it's got most of its mechanical things sorted out, you're going to have a gearbox switch. You're going to need to replace it yourself. You're going to have electrical stuff, which actually can be daunting, but it actually can also be easy to fix. And the occasional oil seal, axle oil seals. Oh, Land Rover and their axle oil seals, particularly those ones in the early Discoveries and Range Rovers. Oil seals. It's not a difficult job. You just have to know how to do it. If you have to farm it out, it's going to cost you. Okay. Right. Brighton, England. Hello, Steve. Scar. What canopy should I get for my Toyota Ute cab? I don't know the Australian canopy market very, very well, but the whole point of a canopy is you want access. So a canopy that doesn't have side opening doors, don't touch it. Canopies that are made from fiberglass can't take nearly as much weight on them. So if you're putting a tent or a rack on them and weight on them, basically they cannot take nearly as much weight as an aluminium one. And they tend to flex a lot like this, which eventually cracks them, breaks them. So go aluminium. The best aluminium camper, it's made by a company called Bushtech in South Africa. A guy called Robbie Benneker started the company in about 2010, 11-ish. And he built this thing, and he designed it with new extrusions and everything. And I actually filmed him while he was lying. We actually dropped a Land Cruiser, or lowered a Land Cruiser Ute on top of the canopy. So there was the canopy with all the doors open. All the doors, the three doors wide open. And he actually lowered, I've got videotape of it, and I actually lowered the weight of this Land Cruiser on top of this canopy, and then opened and closed the doors, and then climbed into the canopy. Yeah, we did have safety things, we did. But the full weight of that Land Cruiser was on it. And then I used one in 2015 in Zambia, and I've been watching that product. It's the best camper canopy I have seen made anywhere. And you know why? Because Robbie decided to build canopies. He didn't decide to build canopies and campers and roof racks and bed. He said, I'm going to build the best canopy you can buy. The end. And he has. It's fantastic, and all of the little bits and pieces that go with it, but they're all a Canopy. Good for you, Rob. You've done a great job. But they're not available in many countries, and he's got a small little factory. It's doing well. He was the guy that organised the spray painting of my first troop carrier. He owned a panel shop. So that's where I know him from. Okay. I don't know what somebody is talking about a Rivian. What's a Rivian? I don't know what a Rivian is. Okay, lots of people talking about what vehicles they would like. I'm looking for particularly questions about building vehicles. Why have you taken the KMPs and no, you love your KO2s, great time, but okay. Okay. They looked great with the KM3s, yes. Now, I've just done a video, and I haven't released it yet because I'm not finished with it. I'm changing my tyres. I took the KM3s off because they were too wide, and on the Simpson Crossing, it's about 1,000 or so sand dunes, and they're all dug up by people driving with too high tyre pressures, because I can promise you, you can drive up easily. The sand is of such a consistency where they're not particularly difficult dunes. It's not powder sand. It's quite a coarse sand, and it's easy to drive if your pressures are lower. So what you're doing by driving them with higher pressures, you're using much more fuel, okay, and you're making holes for everybody else. So I'm driving, and and this wheel's going quack, quack, and it's making a hell of a noise because this wide rim. Now, you might say, well, why didn't I check it? Well, I went to Melbourne, had the axle widened, okay, then put on the wide tyres, the 285 75 R16s. And as we put them on, I said to the guys at Multi-Drive, I think we've got a problem here. That wheel's actually sticking out. And they said, oh yes, we have to so they put a bit of beading around it. So, because I didn't have the tyres by then, I only had my narrows. But then I said to them, if we put a wider tyre on this, isn't it going to stick out? And they actually had a 285 75 lying around with a Toyota rim on it, and they just quickly put it on there, and we stood back and said, yeah, it's going to. So my suspicions were well founded. But I didn't know that it was actually going to touch the bodywork on full articulation. And I had to now drive on the Simpson. I had to slow down. So I'm coming up this dune, and there are holes in it. So I'm in low third, and I come in, and I'm, like this, and I'm trying to do it as slowly as I can and this thing is banging on the back there. And so I managed to not do any damage, but I can't keep them on. So that wide tyre is too wide for the car, and more importantly, it doesn't perform well with wide tyres, and it's not the KM3s. I don't think I need KMs. I don't think I need that a very, very aggressive tyre because I don't do that kind of driving. If I was an off-roader and I did lots and lots of off-road and rock crawling and really difficult climbs, that's a great product to use. But I don't do that. So all of the advantages, let's put it this way, I'm not using really any of the advantages of a tyre like that. I might as well have an all-terrain tyre. I've done so many trips with the all-terrain that, so I will be going back to an all-terrain type tyre. Whether it'll be a BF Goodrich is another question. I'm not going to go into that now. But I might try something else. Anyway, so the narrow tyres use less fuel, perform better. The vehicle feels lighter, it's nicer to drive, uses less fuel. There are no disadvantages. And having now said this 1,000 times about narrow tyres and off-road and the advantages of the off-road, there is an off-road situation where wide tyres are an advantage, definitely. And that is rock crawling, very steep climbs where the ground is quite slippery and you can imagine yeah, rock crawling, very steep, where if you let them down, you've got more rubber on the ground, but where rolling resistance isn't a big issue because the tires are on hard ground. That's where a wide tire will give you advantage. As soon as the ground gets soft, they do not give you an advantage. I am absolutely convinced of that, particularly in sand. They have no advantage in sand whatsoever. That's my little... So, I'm going back to a narrow tire. I drive a TDI 5. This is Anton. What would be the first thing you would modify for a long trip through Europe? You see, again, I don't know what kind of traveling you do and who's kind of traveling in the vehicle and how much load you're traveling in the vehicle and what kind of distances, to be honest with you. Make yourself comfortable, so if you're doing a long trip, you want to be able to access your camping equipment easily so that the evening times and the morning times are not stressful in packing the car and unpacking the car. But probably that would be the... You don't need a rooftop tent. Why do you need a rooftop tent? I'd keep things practical, but that would probably be my first thought about that. Ram Power Wagon and the Alucab Ossivar as a statesides overlander. Okay, the Alucab Ossivar is not a camper well suited to the United States because you can't live inside it. You can't get inside it and use it to get out of the weather. It's dark and dingy and cramped, and yes, it's clever because it can sleep fall. I don't think it's a great product. I just don't. Not for the North American market, where you are going to want to get in it when the weather gets lousy. I've never looked at the Ossivar and thought, maybe no, I haven't. I know of a new camper that is coming out. I've seen the design sketches, and it will probably be in the United States by late this year, early next year. And I've seen the drawings. Very interesting, because it's quite compact. It's quite light. What a brilliant design. Can't tell you much more about it. I've been asked to not say anything about it, because they have said we're hoping to get it out by October, November, but I have a gut feeling that it'll probably be early next year. So I don't want to, oh, where is it? It's like me waiting for this new Sony A7S III. We're waiting now for a year, and it still hasn't come out. I get annoyed with things. Anyway, so, don't think the Ossivar's great. I think you can do a lot better, particularly in the United States, you can do a lot better. All right. But you don't want something that's too tall, okay, top heavy. And I went through the Steel Canyon with a pop-up camper, which actually has a pop-up, so it's actually not too high, and it was a bit of a problem. So think about how high you are. But again, I don't know what kind of traveling you do. So I might be wrong. But that's my first thoughts. Thought of buying a 100 series with 150,000 kilometers on it. 150,000 is not particularly long for a 100 series if it's been well maintained, and it's the same with most. But I know of Land Cruisers with they're so well built. The 100 series is a beautifully engineered truck. It's probably, of all that kind of vehicle, it is probably the best engineered of all of them. Really well engineered vehicle. But if it hasn't been maintained. But yeah. Take it stock Toyota Tacoma 4-drive TRD off-road. I have not driven the Tacoma, the TRD. I've driven the other one, but not the TRD. Look, it's designed for stock off-road and on-road, and you could probably have an enormous amount of fun with a TRD. From what I have read, I can't see a reason why it wouldn't be actually really nice off the peg. Actually, I drove a Toyota Tacoma. It was a TRD. I drove it for about 5 kilometers, and it had been uprated, and this is my whole thing about suspension, it had been upgraded with Ironman shocks and springs. These Ironman gel shock things. The ride was horrific. It was so bad. And this is what I was saying in the video about, this was an expensive suspension upgrade. And it was a downgrade. Yes, it could carry a bit more payload. But at what price? Now I'm talking about the price of the ride. It was really terrible. Okay? So, yeah, this is what I was saying. Just be careful of this whole thing. And I say, speak to your mates about, you're going to get a suspension upgrade. Go and find one to drive. Don't make the assumption, it's an upgrade, therefore it's going to be an option. It's going to be an upgrade. I know of people that have bought suspension systems and have been on a trip and come back straight back to the shop and said, I want my original springs back. And they've just felt, they've spent all this money and the vehicle is horrible. I once had it once. I did a trip in my Land Cruiser 105, which I loved, and I was given a new pair of I had Overland Emu springs in it, and I was given a set of their new Nitro Charger shocks, because the guys at ARV said to me, hey, you got to try this new Nitro car. Great, fantastic. They were terrible. The ride, it ruined the ride of that car, and that car has an incredible ride. It ruined the ride. I put the old ones back. And then not long after that, changed to some Coney Raids. What a combination. Overland Emu Springs, Coney Raids on a Land Cruiser 105. Because remember, the 105 Land Cruiser is the 80 series Land Cruiser suspension and chassis on a 100 Land Cruiser body. It was not sold in very many countries, but like the 70 series is now. Not sold in many countries. All right. Do you think the 670 series needs six-speed transmission? No, not really. Not with the new gearbox, because the new gearbox is a bit different to the older gearbox in the 70 series. Do I need a 6-speed? You know what it needs? Auto. Good auto box. I know a few people have converted their 70 series with a good auto box. You see, the thing is that in the old days, auto boxes were poo-pooed by the four-wheel drive set, and they'd say, you're not a real off-roader if you're with an auto box. And yeah, they're right. Real off-roaders, the really challenging off-roaders need a manual box. Okay, I drove the Jeep Rubicon. It's got an auto box. It was brilliant off-road. So that's no longer the case. It's okay to have an auto box with a real off-roader. It's okay. And they're actually really, the new auto boxes, the early auto boxes off-road were hideous. They used to surge. You used to, you would have to left foot brake, but you would put your foot on the accelerator as far as it would go, and you would just leave it there, and then just control it with the brakes on the left foot. It was the only way to drive these things because they would surge terribly. Even then, they were difficult to drive. So, but the new boxes, they've got lock-up functions. They're great off-road. It's a different story today. Was that fuel tank replacements, auxiliary tanks for 100 series? A bit too specific for me, really. Bit too specific for me. The LX 470, it's a problem with those vehicles. It's a problem with all of those vehicles. Big petrol engines, they're thirsty. You've got to increase range. You've got to now trade some payload off for range. What do? Now, it's a challenge. I don't have an answer for all of them. Okay. I bought a lifetime limited mileage vehicle warranty. This is from AZ Overland. You're a big fan of the show. I intend to keep it for a long time. Wonder if that was foolish, if it's a Wrangler. Well, I don't know. The Wranglers don't have the best reputation for reliability. I mean, they're not unreliable cars, but they're not exactly Toyota standard. But I don't think it was a fool. No, I don't think so. I actually tell people that, for example, the Land Rover LR4, the Discovery 4, which I love the Land Rover Discovery 4. It's one of the great. It's one of the great vehicles because it does the SUV thing extremely well, and yet off road. I mean, I did that thing in the Lesotho. It has some drawbacks, like every vehicle. It has its own drawbacks. But they're very expensive to own, very expensive to own. So if you're going to buy that kind of complicated Land Rover vehicle, buy every warranty under the sun, because then you can relax. And if it doesn't break down, well, good. But if it does, relax. because they can potentially be very expensive to maintain. So the Wrangler, yeah, I don't think you've wasted your money. Well, you bought it now anyway, haven't you? Okay, and what Wrangler? Somebody has asked, it's a Wrangler. Okay, what Wrangler? I'm just talking generally speaking. You Jeep guys, you'll be able to help him because you'll know specific issues with specific models, and I don't. A bump for 265/75 R16 tires. I am trying to get myself some 255/85 profile tires. You know, I believe that's the perfect size for the 70 series because it's not too wide. It's got a huge sidewall, really tall sidewall. So in other words, when I'm letting the pressures down, I get maximum advantage, and I'm getting the advantage, the most significant advantage of big wheels, the diameter. The advantage of diameter, not the advantage of width. So if you can get a really tall diameter with not too much width, best option available as far as I'm concerned with any vehicle driving off-road. That's where it's at. I want to talk a little bit about this trailer. Some of you may have watched that trailer video of mine, and I had very good response from it, and why I don't want to tow. And a lot of people are saying, yes, but I've been really good in trailers and I've had fantastic, and yeah, a lot of people have. I'm not just saying, but you know, if you want your trailer to perform, if you want your trailer to really perform, this is what you do. You get the biggest, narrowest wheels and tires you can find, and you put it on your trailer. When they crossed the Sahara, there was the first unsupported vehicular crossing of the Sahara, probably done in 1970s, around 70s. They used a Land Rover 101 military, pulled by a powered trailer. You should see the size of the wheels on this trailer. They were bigger than the vehicles. They were big, thin, they were huge, enormous. It just rides over the sand. There's no rolling resistance. Just a thought. Yeah, okay. Any experience, the Land Cruiser 200, first day, occasional Overland? You know, the 200 is interesting, and I know the one that you get in the States is not the same as the one that we get here, because we get the turbo diesel, and we get the 4.7 V8 that we get here? I think it is. You get the 5.8, is it the 5.8? Forgive me for all of these different things, but you get the 5.5 litre-ish V8 in the States, and the 5.7. The 5.8 is a bit, they're very heavy on fuel, and we get the turbo diesel here. We get so it's got two turbos. It's the 4.5. I'm sorry, guys, in the States, I know you're drooling. It's not even the Troopy engine. It's a more powerful Troopy engine. It is a very similar block, but it's slightly different. It's different LM manifold, different turbochargers, two turbochargers, and it is a gem. It is a gem to drive and uses the same fuel as my troop carrier. Sorry. But as a platform, the 200, the great part about, and again, in Australia, we're so lucky, we get the GX version here. The GX version has got no frills. It's got nice seats, the dash is the same, it's got, the comfort things and the traction controls, and it's got all of these niceties, but it doesn't have the fuel consumption, and it has big tanks, 2 tanks. So as a 200, it's a really good platform, but in the States you've got a bit of a problem because you've got lower range, so you have to find some of your payload and turn that into range. But as a platform, the ones without the air springs, I wouldn't personally touch a Land Cruiser with air springs for overlanding. For the same reason as I've said about the new Land Rover products, it's exactly the same reason I wouldn't take a Toyota either. The moment you've got air springs, you've got complications with, can you change the wheel size? Are the brake calipers too big for you to be able to change the wheel size? You don't want more bigger than 17-inch rims. You don't want bigger than 17-inch rims. You have to have 17-inch or smaller rims. So can you do that with your vehicle? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. You can't expect to drive with 18, 19-inch rims and perform well off-road. Won't do it. Trying to get the UK turbo diesel engines in the 200 series. That's the 4.5 turbo diesel, isn't it? It's the same one. It's a great engine, fantastic engine. You guys in the States, are you talking about the Dodge 2500 diesel, which is 6-pan with a camper? What camper would you put on it? I've had a look at all of the campers, and I still think the 4-wheel pop-up camper is the best one, but it is horrible looking. It looks like a 1972 panel van in its design. I wish they would do something with the design, when I took one, and I could find no faults with it, I really thought it was such an impressive piece of kit. And you know, when you open it in the back, it's big inside. You lift up the thing; it's easy to lift up. One thing I would suggest, though, they supply it with tie downs made. They're actually, and I don't know why they do this. Don't fit campers with turnbuckles. You strap them down. You use an industrial strap, the kind that you have on trucks. You know, those big straps. Use straps, not turnbuckles. And I say that, and I'm not a camper manufacturer. But the logic is, I want some flex. I want some give. A strap does that. Turnbuckle doesn't. Turnbuckles stretch. They're metal. The metal stretches. When they stretch, they can come loose. They do come loose. I promise you they come loose. My one came loose. Okay, because I was driving over washboards. It came loose. So, yeah, just a thought about campers. Strap them down. Strap, because a strap, your operator can just lean in and pull the little lever, and if it's really tight, don't do it. Oh, it's a bit loose. Click. That's all I have to do. Tightening a turnbuckle is a pain. Here, it's just one lever. Put your hand in an orifice somewhere and go, click. Start again. That's the way to do it. So any kind of camper you put on the back of a ute, you strap it down. You don't bolt it down. All right. If you could buy any ute, which one would you buy? If you're not going to do any modifications to it, that's a difficult one, Aidan. It's a really difficult one. You know, I don't know what you're doing with it. You know, one of my favorite manufacturers? Isuzu, underrated. The Hilux is very, very well made. There's no question about it. Performance-wise and equipment-wise, it's not as good as the Ford. But the Ford has some power, has some reliability issues. I wouldn't touch a Nissan, not with a very, very long pole. And I'm saying Nissan Utes. I'm not saying Nissan Patrol. Patrol owners, don't get upset with me. I'm talking about the specific vehicles. The Navara is a horrible vehicle in many, many ways. I drive a Prado 120 and I'm pretty happy with it. How will it perform overlanding? You know, the Prado is a very, very good platform for an overland station wagon type vehicle. Because it has basic suspension, and it's very easy to upgrade. Very easy to upgrade. And the upgrades work extremely well. Be careful of not putting too much of a lift on it. Your CV joints, the angle of the CV joints can't take much of a bend. Don't put more than 2 inches on it because you'll wear out the CV joints on the front. So, but the Prado is good and it's really well made. FJ is a Prado platform. The Lexus GX 470, it's Prado. It's a Prado platform. Good, very solidly made vehicle, and it's reliable, well made. So they definitely work. The 120 is every bit as good as the 150 in every respect. The 150 I don't think was an upgrade to the Prado. I think it was just Toyota's attempt to make it look more modern when all they actually did was make it look ugly. I think it's quite an ugly vehicle. I don't think it's a pretty vehicle at all. Yeah, Caravan and a Prado did perfectly in the most conditions. Yeah, they do. Prado's good. Prado's really good. Okay, looks like I've got to the bottom of the list, so if you want to throw any questions. VW Transporter Crew Cab Trayback. Do they make a four-wheel drive version of that VW Transporter? I don't think they do, because again, it's like it's very similar to the Sprinter. Big, comfortable to drive, goes well, doesn't use a lot of fuel. 120 Prado may have fuel range than the 150, depends on which country you're in, because they come with different configurations. Bladders, what's your opinion on bladders? The great water carrying bladders is a good idea, because hell, when it's empty you don't have the space used up. So get yourself a bladder and lie it on the floor in front of the back seat if nobody's sitting on the back seat. It's a perfect place for it. Up front, low down, and then when it's empty, it's empty. Bladder is a nice idea, particularly for vehicles where space is a bit of an issue. This is blasphemy to put a ZF Auto in a two-door Classic. Yes, talking about a two-door Classic Range Rover. That's blasphemy to even use the two words in the same sentence. I would love to rebuild a Land Rover, Range Rover Classic one day. One day when I'm too old and crotchety to get on my bicycle, I'll build myself an old Classic Range Rover in my garage. Okay, would you like to talk about starter batteries versus dual purpose batteries versus two batteries? Okay, I'm assuming you have watched the video about the principles of why you need a second battery, but let me explain very briefly the cyclic thing with batteries. High cyclic batteries are the kinds used for cranking. What they're called are cold start batteries. They have a high cold cranking power, which means cold cranking means that at low temperatures, in other words, the vehicle has been stored, the battery is under the bonnet, yet it is at a cold temperature because the vehicle is in a workshop, garage, thing, and hasn't been started. So it needs to, at low temperatures, produce high current very quickly to start the engine. So these batteries they're basically just simple lead acid battery, the most common battery we see today, because they're used the most. And they are very good at delivering high amounts of current at cold temperatures and are good at accepting current immediately, because now you start the engine and an average car needs to travel 5 or so kilometers before that electric current that has been used to start it has now been put back into the battery. It's about 5, 6, 7 kilometers, somewhere around there. And so those batteries, if you now use those batteries as a second battery to run your fridge, it'll do a perfect job. There's one problem though with them. They're high cyclic batteries. In other words, if you can imagine a tub of water, a battery is basically a tub of water and it's full of water and you're using a bit of water, so you start your car, a little water, and then the water is refilled, and then you turn on the radio, and then you turn off the car and your lights are on for a little bit, so your lights go down. So it's high cyclic. The cycle is quite fast, but it's high. So the battery always remains in a good state of charge, or reasonable state of charge. So it's sitting up there all the time, because the moment you turn your engine off, you take out the thing, the alarms start setting on all of the inbuilt systems in the car. Right now, your car sitting in your garage is using electrical current from that battery. So, but it's high cyclic. What those batteries don't like is deep cyclic. So if you drain it too many times, every time it drains and every time it now refills, the plates sulfate. Sulfur is deposited on the plates through the process of charging and discharging. And eventually the sulfates cause a high internal resistance, and the battery starts eating itself. It starts actually absorbing its own current. In other words, you don't plug anything into it and it's actually using its own current because of this internal resistance issue. I won't go into the technical details. Suffice to say that high cyclic batteries can do the job of keeping fridges running and everything, but they're not particularly good at it, only because of this. Eventually it degrades the battery and you'll chuck the battery away. But they cost half the amount of a deep cycle battery. Buy an ordinary car battery. But when you get back from your trip, put it on a charger and leave it on a trickle maintenance charger the whole time. You will find almost as much, not as much, but almost as much performance as a deep cycle battery. So deep cycle battery, you're going to replace it after what, 5 years, 6 years? High cyclic battery, you're going to replace it after 3, for half the amount. But it's better at accepting a current at a low state of charge, because in deep cycle batteries like an AGM and Delco, they're not great at accepting currents when they're at a low state of charge. They're just not. So if you try and give them current directly from an alternator via a solenoid switcher, the battery's not very good at accepting that current. Okay, and particularly if it's in a solenoid switching systems, which I think are just the worst possible idea, is because the alternator has a voltage regulator, and it's reading the voltage off the main driving battery and the auxiliary battery, and it's reading the voltage off both those batteries because they're now connected with a solenoid. Okay, solenoid switches off when the car's parked, auxiliary battery runs the fridge. As the car's started, it's now connected. Okay, but they're not connected. They're connected in parallel, not in series. Never mind. Anyway, so they're connected. Okay, but the voltage regulator in the alternator still reading the high voltage from the start battery, which needs a little bit of current. It's not empty like this one, because this has been running fridge all night. It doesn't see that battery. Doesn't say, oh, you're empty, I'll give you lots of current. It just doesn't, because it sees this battery and says, well, I'll give you a bit of current because you only need a little bit. And gradually current flows through to the other battery slowly. That's why the systems don't work very well. However, because there are different types of batteries, they accept current at a different rate. But if you put a second starter battery here, you'll have the same problem with the alternator reading the battery with a higher voltage. However, the big deal is, because this battery is better at accepting current when at a low state of charge than a deep cycle, when they are connected, it will accept more current than a deep cycle battery. So while it's not an ideal system, it's a better system. So a deep cycle battery, if you're putting a deep cycle battery, you have to have a charger that will modify the current. In other words, it will actually look at that battery independently and say, you need a charge, let me help you out, and deliver and modify the current. It actually modifies the voltage for deep cycle batteries, because it knows it needs a kick in the pants when it's at a very low state of charge. A deep cycle battery needs a good swift kick in the pants to say, hey, wake up, I need you to accept some current now, because they don't. They sit there dormant. You can drive from Cape Town to Cairo, and that second battery will never get a full charge, ever. So you have to match. This is what I'm saying, you have to match. It's okay to buy the inexpensive systems, but don't think that you can buy an expensive battery and buy an inexpensive charging system, because it's not going to work. You're wasting your money. If you're going to buy a cheap solenoid charging system, buy the cheapest battery you can find. High cyclic to match the car battery. Then you'll have a system that works reasonably well. And it can get a bit complicated and everything, but it's a pet peeve of mine, because I've had that in vehicles that I've rented from people with these cursed solenoid switching systems. Okay, DC to dancing. The new C-Tech one is good. The Red Arc is better. The C-Tech don't do well in Australia, hey? The C-Tech DC to DC charging don't do well in Australia. And I think they're not as good as the Red Arcs. The Red Arcs are better. But the C-Tech came up with the very, very first one. It was called the D205, and I was one of the first people in South Africa to try it. And I used one on part of my Finding the Source of the Okavango expedition. And fantastic. The whole concept of DC to DC charging, where you have this thing to look independently at that second battery and say, okay, I'll sort you out. That whole concept just changed everything. Then it doesn't matter what your second battery is. Let's put it this way, it's of less importance. I'm using these lead crystal batteries. Fantastic batteries, for the reasons I gave. Hungriest batteries I've ever used. And that's it, they just deliver. But I'm using a DC to DC, so I am charging them properly. I am. So if I wasn't, I'd probably be frustrated, like many other people. But again, specialist batteries need specialist chargers. Okay. Okay, so you've got your second battery and your main battery is an AGM. So you're using a deep cycle battery for cold cranking. Deep cycle battery is not great for cold cranking. Where are you? Are you in Australia? Are you in a region? You're in Nevada. Okay, interested to know, how does that work in a really, really cold morning? My guess is it'll be okay, but maybe not brilliant. Just a thought. But matching the two batteries is the principle. Red Arc is not much here in North America. Yeah, I know, but you can get them in North America. But DC to DC charging, there's nothing new about it. There are products on the market. You might have to go digging a little bit. Hello from Scotland. Hello Scotland. I won't do the accent. Embarrass myself. Lead crystal is not just an AGM. I promise you, it is not just an AGM. It has a very similar charging profile to an AGM. The construction of the battery is completely different. Okay, LC100, thanks for the videos. I think the LC100 is a much nicer vehicle than the LX470. I really do. I think the Land Cruiser 100 is a nicer vehicle. Mac, I think it's a much better vehicle. They do much more space. It's nicer to drive. If you're going to upgrade the suspension, again with the LC100, careful of that lift at the front. The CV joints can't take much of an angle. Don't go more than 2 inches. Absolute limited to 2 inches. They might try and sell you more, but it could be very expensive in the long run. Okay. Yeah, Red Arc is doing well. They're doing some good stuff. And, you know, the thing is about Red Arc, I know of a few people who have had a problem or two with their things. Red Arc just jumped to it and bam, they're there, they're sorted. That's what I have my experience here. And that to me is, you know, you are going to have the occasion there's a highly technical problem. I haven't had any problems with mine, but, you know, it's the way they react to issues. The way a company reacts to the issues is indicative of their attitude to their own products. They do very, very well. They're a good bunch of guys, and impressive product. And I still don't like your solenoid system, Red Arc. I know why you did it, because some guys just don't want to spend the money. And you should have a big warning label with the solenoid system. Understand what fitting you're putting in your car. Understand it. Because a lot of people don't. And a lot of the four-wheel drive shops don't understand it. And they sell mediocre equipment, not knowing that it's mediocre. It's a particular problem with electrics with these cars. Okay. Sitting in my bus. You're camping in Ireland. This is Donegal Overlanding. Very Irish name. You have two 85 amp deep cycle batteries. Wrecked. Can't get 1 hour of TV after them after driving 2 hours with a 200 amp alternator. Okay, here's the problem. That's the trouble with deep cycle batteries. You can throw 1,000 amps at them and they go, I'm sleeping. You have to wake them up. And an alternator can't wake them up because the alternator can't, it's not designed to. It's designed to say, here's some current. Take it or leave it. That's what an alternator does. It says, oh, you need some, here you go. The battery, deep cycle batteries often do that. When they get low, well, you can't wake them up. You need to boost them. You need to get yourself a DC to DC. So if you're in Ireland, you will find DC to DC in Ireland. Get yourself a D205, DC to DC. It's a 20 amp charger. 20 amp is probably enough to be getting on with, but you can get what they call a last pass. It's a supplementary charger which increases that to 100 amp, which I would do if you've got a 200 amp alternator. Okay, but 2 hours with a 200 amp alternator. Let me share something with you. 2 hours with a 200 amp alternator. You're not getting 400 amps into the battery. Realistically, you're probably getting 12 amps into the battery. Realistically, that's what happens. Whereas if you had a DC to DC, you would be getting, and it was a 20 amp DC to DC, you'd be getting 35 amps into those batteries. See the difference. That's your problem. Okay. The independent testing labs say differently. Well, yeah, my my lead crystals don't operate like AGMs, so I don't actually give a monkey's what they say. I know how well my batteries are working. You see, at the end of the day, it's not how much, it's partly how much the battery can contain, but how willing is it to accept current when you deliver it. And I did a test. I flattened my batteries. I've got two 70 amp lead crystals. I flattened them by running fridges. After 5 days, the fridge turned off. Then I turned on all my LED lights. I left them running for another 4 or so days until they started going out. I then turned off everything and measured the voltage across the battery. It was 8.2 amps. So an 8.2 amp voltage across a battery with no load, that's a dead battery. That's a paperweight. I then put an ammeter across it and started the engine. Within 30, and this was a DC to DC that had been configured to AGM batteries. This is before Red Arc had made the new 50 amp charger, which is now regulated for lead crystal. And the charging profiles are very similar for the two batteries, but they're not the same. It accepted within seconds 22 amps, and within 30 minutes it was accepting 43 amps from a 40 amp charger, which is basically saying it is accepting every single bit of current that is being offered to it. The battery is actually accepting. This measurement wasn't the amount of current being delivered to the battery, it was the amount of current being absorbed by the battery. There's a difference. Okay, I promise you an AGM cannot do that. It can't. It's not designed to. The cyclic properties of an AGM, the way an AGM works. So, Andrew hates solenoid. I do. You know why I hate solenoids? Because they're not understood. They do have their place, believe me, they do have their place, but they're not understood. So people expect more from them than they can possibly deliver. Peter, that I built the Land Cruiser for, he said he wanted the solenoid system made by National Lunar. I said, why did you want that? Well, I've got it in my other Land Cruiser. I said, does it work? He said, yeah. All right, good. I said, would you like to spend about $300 more and get something that is actually just so unbelievably good? Because I promise you what you've got now is a system that is kind of working. How long do you camp for? He said, oh no, we move almost every night. We very rarely go more than 2 nights. I said, okay, it's fine for that. It's okay for that. The moment you spend more than 2 nights at the place, your battery's going to be flat. And he also had a 100 amp deep cycle. I said, would you like to spend a little bit more and I can give you because I won't fit one of those. I won't. I'm just not going to do that for you. Okay, so if you want to fit one of those systems in your car, I want nothing to do with it because it's a bad system. I know it's a bad system. And he eventually went for the system I recommended, and it was about $300 or something like that more. Wasn't much more. And he's got himself an amazing system. So, yeah. E-Series Sportsmobiles. Yeah, I drove an E-Series Sportsmobiles. This is DVT Man. I drove a Ford E-Series on the Mojave Road. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I would take a Sportsmobile tomorrow in America. No question. If you said to me, pick a vehicle for North America, Sportsmobile. Heavy on fuel. V10 engine. Stupid. But what a great platform. I love it. I would take one across America. So some people say, yeah, I'm disappointed in your vehicle, taking a van, Trans-America or Pan-America. I don't have choice. I can't just pick any vehicle I would like. Because if I could, I might take a Sportsmobile. Okay, so somebody said here, CIC Cressida, dirty part sells a transistor that tricks the ECU to bump the charge for solenoid systems. Yeah, what that says to me, I don't know that product, but what that says to me is somebody's recognized that there's a problem here. Might be an easy fix. It might work. Might work. Hey, I mean, if you can make it work, make it work. If it's a cheap thing and it improves it, go for it. Hybrids, off-road Rangers, Broncos, hybrids. Yeah, Ford working on hybrids. I'm sure they are. Somebody asked me about electrical cars. I mentioned it earlier in the broadcast about electrical cars. I think one day we'll have electrical overlanders, but they need 1,000 kilometers range, 600 miles range. Then you're talking. Before then, I don't think so. Just my guess. Okay, reviews on air filter choice, stock paper, reusable oil filter. I mentioned that earlier in the video. You'll have to go back and somebody asked that very same question. Overlanding in the US with a pop-top Wrangler must be good fun. I mean, because I have seen Venture. Yes, I have seen Venture four-wheel drive, actually. I've been watching his stuff. Yeah, I've been watching his stuff. I actually subscribed to him the other day. He's got a pop-top Wrangler. He's travelling on his own. Good platform you're on your own. Yeah, okay. Would you prefer better parallel with the motors run, or both axles with a small gas motor on the gas electric? Well, no, I can't answer that question. I don't actually quite understand it sounds like you're making homemade cars. I'm not quite sure of your question there. Forgive me for that. Will we be seeing more of Mrs. White? Mrs. White, it's very, very early Sunday morning. She's probably getting up now, getting ready to go to church. Yes, definitely. She's coming with me to New Zealand, and she will be with me for part of my US travels. So yes, I know you want her to come with me, and I'm in a much better mood when she's with me. So yes. If I had 100K for a small meal, I'd buy a house. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Richard, that's a stupid price. I know. I completely understand. A Lion, lots of experience off-road. You don't need KDSS. Okay, I'm just kind of going through. No, I'm not doing Overland Expo West in May. The trouble is with Overland Expo, it is... what was I? Sorry, I got. May is a bad time for me because May is the time that I want to be in Australia. It is the time I want to be in Africa. It's just, it's the best time to travel. So, but next year, 2020, yes. Okay, the way the plans are going now with Pan America's Highway. Yes. I'm going to do my absolute best, and in fact I'm hoping to have the vehicle that I'm going to be using, and as I said, it might or it might not be the Sprinter for the southern part of Pan America, and whatever I do, I'm hoping to have it at Overland Expo West, but not this year, next year. Sorry guys. Okay, I've got that thing. All right. Donegal Overlanding wants me to subscribe to you. I will definitely look at that when I'm finished this broadcast. Bumps to talk about hydraulic bump stops. I'm an overlander, not really a 4x4 obstacle driver. I've done it in my time and had my time and loved it. And then I would talk about hydraulic bump stops. Yeah, hydraulic bump stops are a good thing. I think they are not really applicable to overlanding unless you're that guy earlier on with that Hilux with a very heavy load on the back. And then I would say, yeah, maybe that's a solution. Maybe that is certainly an option for him to look at. They're quite expensive, but they're worth considering if you're really at the edge of the suspension, which means that maybe you're overloaded or something. I mean, it's easy for me to say you're overloaded, but sometimes we just are because we carry that amount of kit. So, but I don't have personal experience of hydraulic bump stops. I know about them, I read about them, but so I can't give a lot of them. Can you talk about cleaning the engine with MX3 degreaser? No, I don't know that specific product. Sorry, mate. Hydraulic bump stops? Yeah, somebody else has come up with that. New generation solar panels. The newer solar panels that are coming out that are very good for building on trucks are these. They're about this thick, they're flexible, they're incredibly robust. Unbelievable, they can take such a punishment. They're not as efficient as the rigid panels, that normally have an aluminium frame and a very thin, clear, breakable top, sometimes even made out of glass. They are not as efficient, but we're not looking necessarily for pure efficiency, are we? We're also looking for something that is going to take a beating. I saw an interesting thing the other day. One of these very, very robust panels, and here's a little thing that I saw, and I thought, wow, I got to share this. Okay, so you put a panel. So that's your roof. There's your roof. Okay, and so you take a panel and you put your panel on the roof. Okay, and you glue it. You glue it down. You don't need to do any more than use a Secret Flex type glue, and you glue it down. But here's the thing. When you put the glue in, don't close any of the loops. In other words, you put glue like this. All right, it's open. In other words, air can escape from underneath. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, there must be no place where the glue is underneath the panel that is enclosed that can trap air. I saw one where it was done like that. And it was put on a clamshell type rigid tent. And it destroyed the panel. The panel had actually got hot in the sun and actually blown up and destroyed the panel. I just thought that was interesting. But these new panels are amazing. They're getting more and more efficient day by day and getting more and more robust day by day. Some of these panels now, you can cut them up and actually slice them into bits and they will survive. So, Eastern Defender 134, Southern Eastern Africa, too long a wheelbase. No, not too long a wheelbase. Definitely not. It's a great platform. Really good platform. Most of your driving in Southern and Eastern Africa is going to be gravel roads and sand tracks. Defender eats them for breakfast. I have 15 years rock crawling experience, every trail in Moab, the Rubicon, hammers, etc. You really learn your vehicle's dynamics rock crawling. Yeah, I agree with you. You did. I mean, absolutely. If you want to learn about driving off-road, rock crawling is a brilliant way of doing it. My early days, I used to do a lot of events with the Land Rover Owners Club, and we had very, very steep inclines with big holes. It's not quite up to the standard you guys do in Moab. No, it's not that. But lots of mud. And I won 2 events in my career. I won 2 trophies, and both times that I won, it had been raining so hard, half of the entrance couldn't even get to the start point. It was so slippery. So I have a knack for mud driving, keeping the car going in mud. And but you're right, yeah. Rock crawling, you start understanding vehicle dynamics. And a lot of people don't actually understand that. Those vehicle dynamics are so important and such a fun part of this overlanding thing as well as four-wheel driving, is because when you're overlanding, it's also vehicle dynamics. The load you put in the vehicle, the effect it has on the vehicle, effect it has on the steering. You do a suspension uplift, and suddenly your steering feels a bit funny. Well, why is that? Did they put caster bushes in? What's a caster bush? Ask your suspension guys. Are you putting caster bushes in? Anything more than a 1-inch lift, you need caster bushes, particularly if it's a solid axle. Okay, so yeah, stuff like that. You start learning this stuff. You start understanding and learning this stuff. And driving, rock crawling is a fantastic way of 15 years rock crawling in the Rubicon hammers. Fantastic. German Overland show. Yeah, I'm not going to Europe this year. I kind of like the idea to. Okay, yeah. Somebody mentioned here. Don't worry, not just the Navaras. The Patrol is an amazing vehicle. It is incredibly well built. There's some very good engines there. A couple of lousy, so the smaller turbo diesel engines. There's nothing special about those engines. The drivetrain of the Patrol, the build and everything, they are really strong vehicles, extremely strong vehicles. So when I say the Navara's not a particularly good vehicle, I'm not talking about Nissans. Small SUV, Nixon S-Trail, it's one of the best out there. Really good vehicle. Not because it's a Nissan, because it's a good vehicle. You know, so I'm trying not to be brand specific here. Patrol's a great vehicle. I wouldn't drive a Patrol. I think in Australia, Patrol drivers got a reputation, and I can understand why, of being hooligans. Very aggressive driving, somehow they drive like South African BMW drivers. For some reason, you guys think that you have some superiority over other people, and you have a right. I don't know what it is about Patrol drivers. It's in Western Australia. Maybe it's the whole of Australia. I don't really know, but I've seen that. I think other people have seen it too. It's a good car, good truck, very good off-road. Is it better than the Land Cruiser 105? No. That's because I did own a 105 and I love the 105. It might be as good, but I am saying it's not because I feel like it. Thoughts on the new Suzuki Jimny? Will you guys please stop asking me about the Suzuki? Man. Suzuki, Subarus, da, da, da. You guys and your why do you please explain to me what it is about the Suzuki Jimny that you want me to talk about? Please. Value, if any, of a rear limited slip differential. Okay, rear limited slip differentials there are different kinds. A rear limited slip differential is an advantage. It is definitely an advantage if they work. Okay, limited slip rear differentials wear out. The cones actually wear out. So you have a situation where you have a very, very old vehicle with a limited slip differential. You might find the limited slip not working terribly well. Lockers are better, obviously, because you can control them and then you know where they're on or off. So if there is value, yes, there is value. There is definitely value. Okay, please somebody explain to me why you want me to do so many people Suzuki Jimny. Because it's cheap? Is it because it's cheap? Maybe I should find one and test drive one. They're very, very small. For overlanding, they're going to be too small. I can just tell by looking at it. I'm sure they're fun to drive and everything, but, you know. The GQ Patrol with red P plates in Australia coming back. Yeah, to you though, mostly older drivers. Yeah, I get that. Okay, great question from Jake. Do I believe that the Iveco or the MAN trucks are suitable for overlanding? Yes, they are suitable for overlanding, but you have to ask yourself what kind of overlanding are you doing and where are you going and what kind of tracks you want to do on. The thing is with the very, very large vehicles is this, for overlanding. If you're driving in your continent, then you don't have to worry about shipping. Any overland vehicle that cannot fit into a container and you want to ship it to different countries is going to be out row, roll in, roll off, on the deck and susceptible to theft. And believe me, if your vehicle passes through without being broken or broken into, you're going to be lucky. Okay, so it's very, very common for these vehicles to be ripped off on cargo ships. So you want to put them in a locked container. Can it fit into a locked container? Yes or no? The second thing about these larger vehicles, like the Iveco, I like the Iveco a lot, but a lot of people speculated that, in fact, I'm going to get an Iveco for myself. And I decided not to because I decided that the larger vehicle was not for me. If I was doing a 3-year-long trip around Australia, I would probably go for something like an Iveco. I probably would. Because I would want that full comfort. I'm living out of it. It's my house. I need to be as comfortable in that thing as I would be in my house. If that's the criteria, you have to go large. You don't have any choice. Up to a point where can it fit into a container, and is that important? That's the thing. So, but are they suitable for overlanding? Without question, they are very suitable for overlanding, but with that proviso. And so somebody's come up with a Jimny answer there. Budget friendly, yes, cheap. I understand it's cheap. I wouldn't buy a Jimny. I'd buy a second-hand something else. Because a Jimny might be cheap, but it's not very practical for overlanding. It's too small. That's my take on it, even though I haven't driven one. I just look at it and think, like the Nissan Terrano. It's a got a little, it's not like a soul, but it's got a little, good off-road. They weren't well made. They actually fell apart. But, yeah, it's a bit small. Short wheelbase one, same size as the Jimny. I drove one. It's far too small. It's just too small. You can't do anything with it. Even for 2 people. It's no good for overlanding. Okay, a torsion or a gimmeted rear slip and drive. Yeah, you guys are talking a bit kind of quite technical on that kind of thing for four-wheel drives, and I'm kind of more overlanding. So, Iveco Daily is awesome, great, Mason. You'll enjoy that truck. I'm not surprised. I think it has huge potential. I really do. For my use, I'm not there yet, but maybe one day. I mean, I really enjoyed driving the truck. It's amazingly able to drive, and it was good fun. And I thought the engine was really quite remarkable, given what it was pulling around. And it's not a particularly big engine. I'm considering an Iveco for my around Australia ship. Who should I go to? Who should I go to buy one? I don't know. Use 200 series for Europe and Africa. Bad idea? Not at all. Try and get a diesel. Not a bad idea at all. In fact, it's a good idea. 100 series, 200 series for guys traveling, doing touring Europe and Africa. A very good idea. Toyota spares everywhere. It's the one thing about Toyota that Mitsubishi isn't bad. Actually, Mitsubishi isn't bad. Isuzu's not bad, but Toyota's, Land Rover's not good anymore. Used to be quite good, not good anymore, because not many people are using Land Rovers in less developed countries. Toyota spares. Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And it's what makes Toyota a very, very good overlanding vehicle, because you can get spares absolutely everywhere. And also, because they're so common, because Toyotas are so common in less developed countries. You have a problem with a 1HZ engine and you pull into a place in Lusaka, they'll know this car backwards. They'll be able to sort you out. You know what I mean? So it's good. Toyotas are very good for that kind of thing, particularly the basic older bit, 80 series, even 100 series. The 100 series engine, not the 1HDT, it's the 4.2 multi-valve turbo diesel engine. Not the 1HZ, which is the 2 valves per cylinder, but I'm talking about the 4 valve per cylinder turbocharged 4.2 Toyota engine is a masterpiece of an engine. I would prefer that to my V8 in my Land Cruiser, because fuel consumption would be similar, not quite as good. It has very basic electronics, just electronic ignition. It has very basic electronics, and what an amazing engine, pulling from 0 RPM. It's an amazing engine. I love that engine. And they come in, if you can get a 200 VX diesel, that's the engine. Brilliant. You should talk to how to ship an overland vehicle. Yeah, I know how to ship an overland vehicle. I've done it. Claycroft, yeah. I know how to do it. I've done it before. They went, yeah, okay. Do I believe in a dual wheel spec, and is it for long distance dual? Okay, so the last part of the Land Cruiser video, which is coming out on Thursday, is, as I said before, I'm going to talk about the one principle that I didn't touch on, and it is the single most important principle of all. I'm also going to talk about the choices of the spare wheels. Basically, a second spare wheel is insurance. Do you insure your vehicle? Do you take a EPIRB or a sat phone with you in case you have a problem? That's exactly the same reason why you're going to take a second spare wheel. Again, you've got to decide, what are the chances of puncture? What are the chances of not just a puncture, wrecking a tyre? What are the chances of actually cutting a sidewall with a slit this big? What are your chances of doing that so you cannot repair the tyre? Because you're going to take tyre repair stuff. Okay. What are your chances? That's really, so again, it's not, for me, I take a double spare wheel because when I'm out there, I just want to feel comfortable. That's an insurance policy. I never use them. I've never used a second spare in my life. Nice having them. Why do you carry them? Because you never use them. I carry a first aid kit, carry a snake bite kit. Never used a snake bite kit. Okay, RAV4, too soft for overlanding. Yes, it's too soft for anything. RAV4. If ever there was a vehicle manufacturer that got it wrong, the RAV4 was the first sort of really compact, small four-wheel drive SUV that had amazing off-road performance. Why? Because they had good clearance. That's all they needed to do. It was slightly oversized wheels and good clearance. That thing on dunes is unstoppable. It's unbelievable. Now, there's no clearance. It's no good. See, for a vehicle to go off-road, and overlanding does mean off-road, because overlanding means long stretches of road, long stretches of gravel road, some off-road tracks, some off-road, even some obstacles. That's what overlanding should encompass. Okay. Can it do all those things? Or can it do some of those things? The RAV4 can only do the road things. You can't go take it on a track anywhere. You have to stick to the roads. So not really overlanding, is it? It's kind of, yeah, so not really. Yes, the 1HD FTE is the engine, Keen. Thank you. That's the engine I'm talking about. Yes, give me a like. Thank you, Colin. I know you don't like camping toter trailers, but would you consider towing a small boat for fishing or exploring? Yes. Yes, I would. You see, now I don't have a choice. See, as I said before, I have a choice of doing something for my living. And the choice is to put something on the back of the vehicle that I can live out of and be comfortable and function as a filmmaker and the things that I do, because remember, I'm working, this is my job, da-da-da-da. And if I wanted to go fishing, would I carry a boat? Shall I tell you what my ultimate goal is? Here, I'm gonna let you into a secret of my ultimate goal, and it does involve towing. I want to tow an aircraft that I can assemble on site, and it would have to be in a trailer. I'll tow for that. So yes, I will tow. Okay, what else have I got here? So, different angle to the channel. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm not a very good fisherman, but man, I love it when I am. I do like fishing, but I'm not very good at it. It's one of those skills, you know. I have one of the new Jimny, definitely too small. I did help recover a Toyota Surf this morning. Jimny had no problem in the soft sand. There's nothing wrong with the Jimny off-road. Nothing wrong. It's light. It's got a good power-to-weight ratio. The clearance is reasonably good. There's nothing wrong with it off-road. It's not any good for overlanding. How would you set up a Ford F-150 standard cab short bed? I'd put a camper on the back of it. Those new F4, I love those new F-150. I don't know why. I shouldn't be enjoying the F-150 as much as I am. Oh, it's just jumped. Somebody mentioned the Raptor. Oh, it jumped. Let's try and find you again. Thoughts on new Jeep Gladiator for overlanding? I have one big question about the Jeep Gladiator. What is its payload going to be? If it has a reasonable payload of anything above... I'm sorry, I'm going to do kilos here, guys. I know in America you're in pounds. Do the conversion for me, won't you? 750 kilos payload. It needs at least that. But what a great idea. Gee, they're going to sell those in spades. Why didn't they do it before? Why didn't Jeep make a pickup before? Man, are they going to sell a lot of those things. I would take one of those with a camper at the back. And this camper that I was telling you about that is coming out early next year, put that on a Jeep, on the new Jeep. Yeah, Gladiator, great name. All right, would you consider traveling north and Western Africa? Yeah, I'd always carry 2 spare tires. Okay, in Africa, 2 spare tires, no question about it. And would I consider it? Yeah, I would. But Africa is Western Africa seems to be reasonably okay these days, but not Mauritania. That area in the Western Sahara, Mauritania, is a bit iffy. There's some good information. Contact Chris Scott. Chris Scott is the guy who knows North Africa extremely well. I would love to do something in North Africa, but it is a bit risky. You know where to go. Don't just go driving around. It's very dangerous to just go driving around. You need up-to-the-minute reports on not so much road conditions, but people conditions. Bandits, bad people, the bad guys. RAV4 Truth Bomb. Good. It is, sorry. Sorry that RAV4 owner that you asked me. I'm sorry, but okay. Latest RAV4. Another RAV4. No, I don't want to talk about the RAV4. Let's talk about the 4Runner. Okay. The Toyota in the US brought out the 4Runner and a couple of manifestations which look really good. I think it's when it replaced the FJ, didn't it? It's why you lost the FJ. Is it better than the FJ? Well, off-road, no. Practically speaking, no question. It's much more practical than the FJ, practically speaking. It just doesn't look as good, but it still looks good. I think the 4Runner has yeah, look at it. It's an everyday car. It's your everyday runner, and you pack some stuff in the back, and it's a really capable four-wheel drive. Really, what more can you want? I think it's good. It's one of the better ones in the States. That 4-litre V6, quite thirsty on fuel. Yeah, they're not light on fuel, but it's a problem you already have. Okay. Thoughts on Jason Simon, All Four Adventures? Look, these guys, All Four Adventures are an Australian chaps that go and do some really radical off-roading in Australia. They've got a TV show. I have watched some of their stuff, and I don't, to be honest with you, watch a lot of the four-wheel drive guys. I watch a little bit of Ronnie. I don't watch all of his stuff. I watch some All Four Adventure and some of the North American guys. They are not my. They're very heavily financed and very heavily sponsored. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a different business model to my business model. But they're doing genuinely amazing trips, and they've got a great name for themselves. So I don't find a lot of their stuff particularly entertaining. I did watch one of their trips up to the Cape York that I really watched, and they went the difficult route around the coast. I remember there was these big sand flats they were driving on, things like that. Pretty exciting stuff. So yeah, they've got themselves a very good business, actually. I can't believe it, Mark. Pipistrel Sinus. That's the aircraft I'm talking about. That is the aircraft that I'm talking about. That's what I want, a Pipistrel Sinus. I flew one in 2007. I flew a Pipistrel Sinus in Cape Town. It was just before I got my Zumango motor glider, my Brazilian motor glider, because I considered the Sinus. And for Australia, the fact that you can put it in a trailer, take off the wings, put it in a trailer, assemble it on site, and fly. I think the Pipistrel Sinus. Guys, Google Pipistrel Sinus, S-I-N-U-S. Google it. Towed behind a trailer. See, if I had heaps of money, now you'd know what I'd do. Because they're not cheap. Okay. So, 4Runner and FJ Cruiser coincided in the US market. Yes, they did for a short while. They did. You're absolutely right. They did mobile modo. You're absolutely right. But now they have upgraded the 4Runner and made it more of a kind of upmarket. They've done it with some of their bits and pieces, and got rid of the FJ Cruiser because marketing-wise, it's actually replaced that's what's actually happened in that. What do you think of an off-road light bar in front of the radiator? Well, if you put big lights in front of the radiator, you do have effective cooling. What we did with the 76 is we tucked it quite high up, and there's still plenty of space. So but whatever the trouble is with turbulence. So if you put big lights in front of the radiator, it creates turbulence as opposed to airflow. You want air to go through the radiator, over the engine, and out the back. That's what you want to happen. Okay, and that's what the fan helps do. So now, by putting big things in front of the radiator, you get this turbulent air, and you reduce the amount of air actually flowing through the radiator. So really, a light bar, you can't put it on top of a light bar, and also they're very exposed. Put on top of a light bar, it's illegal in Western Australia. Having them high up can be illegal, but only if they see it and you've got light on the bonnet. If you get a lot of light reflecting off your bonnet, they don't allow it. In my Trippy, I put one up there, but I've got the sun visor to prevent when I have virtually no light on my bonnet at all. nothing. So that's really the thing. So keep, wherever you're putting lights, try and keep, just be aware that you want a good airflow through that radiator. I've had experience with cooling for other reasons, interestingly enough. But yes, big lights. Mates of mine on a trip once, and his name was Jacko. He was the photographer on the late Jacko Angelini, the late great Jacko Angelini. He was a professional colleague of mine. He's a director of TV commercials, and I edited his TV commercials for years. And a lovely man. It actually it shocked me to the core. It's one of those people when he passed away 3 years ago, and it really affected me. I don't know why. I mean, I didn't even spend that much time with him, but he came with me to Angola. Yeah, I digress. He had big lights, big IPF lights on the front of his 105. And his whole floor would be getting hot. And we were on the trip, and he'd call me on the radio, my floor's so hot. And I'd go and sit in his floor. It was really, really hot. Oh, what is it? And I said, well, it's your lights. He just ignored me. And after one evening, he wasn't around the campfire. I heard some tinkering going on. And I saw he'd taken off the lights. I didn't say anything to him. And in the middle of the day, the next day, he radioed me. He said, Andrew, yeah, it's cool in here. The lights had affected the entire cooling, not only the engine, but the interior cab as well. The floor was hot. Lights in the front. So it's an interesting thing that I learned, that you don't know what the effect it's going to have, the lights in the front. How can you measure it? But it does affect it. How badly does it affect it? Okay. I'm struggling to do what to do next. Spent a fortune on my 96 Disco, but the body rot from beach camping. Oh, yeah, I feel for you. Getting a good old Discovery now is really, really difficult. Is it worth saving to buy a Hilux with a Kaya camper? The Kaya isn't a bad camper. Are they still making the Kaya at Alucab? They've stopped one of them. They had the two, the Osavar and the Kaya. I think they've stopped making one of them. But yeah, I like the idea of a. You can't go really wrong with that kind of combination. Thoughts on the next Defender needs to be Windows Overlander over. Can they do it? All right. I actually just recorded a podcast, and it's not out yet. So I'm going to repeat a little bit now of what I said in my podcast about the new Land Rover Defender. And I got very passionate while I was doing my podcast about it, because I don't think Land Rover's, and maybe this is cynical, but I don't think Land Rover's going to get it right. And I'll tell you why. The people at Land Rover now who are running the Land Rover shop, designing vehicles, their average age is 30, okay? And they understand these things. This is what they understand. They don't understand coil springs and roof racks and chucking a load of hay in the back of. They don't understand that. That's not part of their world. Why do you think all of the Land Rover products now, New Discovery, Discovery Sport, Range Rover Sport, look exactly the same? You can't tell them. You can hardly tell them apart. For the person who doesn't understand the range, you have to go. And I do it. And I know four-wheel drive vehicles. It's what I do. I go, what's that? Yeah, that's a Range Rover Sport. I have to look, whereas before, I could see what it is. Look at them. You know what they are, just by just a glimpse, and you could know. Only the Range Rover stands out. So I am scared they're going to do a Defender that's going to just look like those, because let's face it, they've become quite boring. They were very interesting. And I'm not saying boring performance-wise, so don't get upset with me, Land Rover owners. I'm talking about they've become ordinary. They were exceptional. They have become ordinary. Only the Range Rover is exceptional. So will Land Rover build a Defender even for the Englishman who loves to go green laning? Maybe. you see, what they've got to do, this is the thing they've got to do, to make this vehicle attractive to the broad four-wheel drive audience. They're not just going to make something for overlanding. Nobody does. Okay, so the broad four-wheel drive audience are the guys and girls that put a surfboard on the top, go camping, go climbing up this really tricky trail to get to the top to set up their tent and photograph and fly their drone. Okay, these are the people they've got to cater to. And they will do part of that. They will do a very good four-wheel drive system with a traction control. Let's face it, the Land Rover traction control is awesome. Okay? A traction control system with good clearance. Okay? And probably a reasonable payload, because the Defender had a pretty good payload. It was pretty good at carrying a load. Actually very good at carrying a load. What? That's where it's going to end. They'll probably get those three right. What they will get wrong will ruin it completely for you and I, overlanders. They will put in clever suspension. And they will put in big wheels. And it'll ruin it. You and I want to put on 16-inch, maybe 17-inch rims. We couldn't do it with the LR4. You can, but you need special things, and it's complicated. You can't just say, I want that wheel and that tire, please put it on my car. You can't, because they'll make it too complicated. They make the suspension too complicated. If they put air springs, I'm not even going to review it if they put air springs in it. Hopefully, they'll put coils in. Okay? It doesn't need to be in solid axles. In fact, I think it would be a mistake if they did. And this is a bit of a stretch, because a lot of you guys with Defenders are saying, well, you have to have solid axles if you want to go off-road. Yeah, if you want to go Moab, yeah, I guess you do. But for the rest of us human beings, normal people, you don't need solid axles. Look how good the FJ Cruiser is off-road. Look how good the 4Runner is off-road. Look how good so many vehicles are off-road, and they don't have Discovery 4. Look how good it is off-road. It doesn't have independent. It doesn't have solid axles. It has independent suspension. So I don't think they will put solid axles in, and I think it would be a mistake, because they can get so much better performance out of it on road without solid axles. Why the compromise? One of the huge compromises of the Land Cruiser 70 series and Defender is solid axles. The Jeep JK, it's a huge compromise, solid axles, but they're designed to do what they do, and they do it very, very well because of the hard axles. That's not the new Defender. That's not the market they're going for. But if they're going for an overland market, they can do independent. They can do a good independent setup as long as it's got good clearance, and as long as they don't make it too complicated. Then it'll be like a Prado. Prado, you can lift a Prado, FJ 150, you can lift an FJ, get it off the ground. Get that solid axle off the back. Put independent at the back as well. Why not? Give it better clearance. Okay, so they potentially will make a very good off-road vehicle, but if they make it too complicated by putting too big of wheels, they're going to ruin it. And hopefully they don't do that stupid air suspension. We don't need air suspension in this kind of vehicle. We want, The inside story is, the inside track is that they were talking about doing a glass cockpit, and that immediately rang some very, very, and this is from somebody from the inside, Land Rover, and that just rang terrible alarm bells. What is glass cockpit? No, you put a glass cockpit in a Range Rover, not a Defender. But as I said, they're 30-year-olds, and they know how to program a cell phone, not design a car. So it's not the old school. The old Land Rover guys developing their first traction controls, and they're developing the first full-time four-wheel drive systems and all of that kind of stuff that they were so good at. They're no longer there. They're all retired. They're older than me. So, Colin, that's my thoughts on the Defender. I really hope they do a good job, because if they do a good job, wow. Imagine if they did a good job. Because if you think about, let's take Land Cruiser 200. Land Cruiser 200, why is it so successful? Well, because, and I'm talking about the 200 really in the Australian guys, frugal diesel engine, Automatic gearbox, 6-speed automatic gearbox, lovely gearbox, really nice gearbox, comfortable, it's roomy and spacious. And why is it such a good overlander? Because the suspension and the systems are simple. That's it. And it's got good clearance. It doesn't have great clearance, it doesn't have incredible clearance, but it has good clearance. It doesn't have a clearance as good as an LR4, but the LR4 is too complicated. So you can't modify it. So you can take an LR4 and you want to put high profile tires on it because you want to use it off-road. Complex to do that. You can do it, but it's very complex. Land Cruiser 200 is not complex. So you can do it. Imagine a Land Cruiser 200 with a Land Rover terrain response traction control. It would be unbelievable. I'm hoping they do something like that. Not as expensive as the Land Cruiser 200. Like a 4Runner type thing with that amazing traction control system in it, where it can really be used. Imagine that. That would be an incredible vehicle. Land Rover could build it. No question about it. Whether they will or not, I'm a bit cynical. I don't think they will. Okay. It's because they are bending towards the people. Yes, you're right, Viper. They are bending. You know, so I was going to do a proposal about 2 years ago to Land Rover, and the chap that... So Viper basically said, independent front suspension, because they are bending towards the people who buy them, the people of Beverly Hills. So I wanted to do something, and I thought about approaching Land Rover, and I was chatting to this guy who had an inside track, and he was actually one of the consultants on the development of the new Defender 2 years ago. And I said to him, thinking about doing this and approaching Land Rover, and he said, don't waste your time. Oh, why? And he said, because unless you have in your proposal, and he was absolutely serious, unless you have the proposal that the destination is the Hilton Hotel in Beijing, don't bother. They're not where Land Rover used to be. It's a different company. That's why I'm cynical about. They're building cars for street cars. Let's face it. The difference, though, between a Range Rover and, say, a Q7 Audi is a planetary distance away. The Range Rover is an off-road vehicle. Q7 might have four-wheel drive, but it gets to snow and stops. Range Rover carries on going because the systems are so clever. Okay, so Land Rover has still kept that heritage of a good off-road performance, but the marketing people couldn't care less. They just want to sell cars to the Beverly Hills set, as Viper just said. He's absolutely right. Okay, suspension upgrade to Toyota Prado suspension upgrade. What suspension upgrade would I have? I tell you what, I built one of the Prados that I built, Prado 150, one of the Prados that I built in my company is Autograph Overland, which is my little company that I do building. And every vehicle I built gets this badge on it. That I built it, I kind of created this vehicle. And I did 2 Prados. And I put in Old Man Emu springs and Coney Raid shocks. What a combination. There you go. There's my answer to you. Gee, it rode well. Man, it rode well. It rode so well. That's probably what I would do. And that was some years ago. It worked well. 1,100 pounds payload capacity, enough for a typical overland vehicle. It's kind of on the edge. It's borderline. 1,100 pounds, borderline. Old Man Emu BP51s. Look, I still have them on my vehicle. I put them on the new vehicle because I think the ride is really good. I like the fact that you can control the rebound as well as the compression. So your particular vehicle and your particular load, you can get it just right for that. It was fiddly to get it right. I did a lot of changes and I've now got it right and it's wonderful, wonderful. So the price you pay with the BP51s is that you have to do a bit of fiddling, but the end result, great. Yeah, the Land Rover head office lost its original off-road spirit. It has lost its original off-road spirit because the people there are, you're absolutely right, I agree with you. Defender in the USA, yeah, sorry guys, you spend so much buying those Defenders in the USA. I mean, I'm amazed how much you spend on your Defenders in the USA. It's crazy. Okay, Gladiator 600 pound payload. Yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not bad. Not bad. Not great, but it's not bad. It's usable. We can work with that, folks. We can work with that. Because remember, the minute you upgrade payload by putting on extra springs, just put an extra spring will increase the payload. Yes, you can do that, but Jeeps traditionally have a very small wheel bearings. They're really small, and that's why you cannot overload a Jeep. It's why you can overload Land Rover Defender. You can overload it. Quite actually, other things breaks, not the wheel bearings. Other things will break, not the wheel bearings. Toyotas, also fairly healthy. The Toyota Hilux, good wheel bearings. Land Cruiser, reasonably good wheel bearings. Not great. Jeeps, small. So if you're going to upgrade the suspension loading, just be aware you're going to need to service those wheel bearings more often than you probably would have liked. You can do it, but just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I've seen overloaded Jeeps. What do? They run wheel bearings. Not that uncommon for guys that are overloading their Jeeps. Speed restriction when lifted on the LR3. Yeah, Johnson rods can eliminate the speed. Why wouldn't you recommend it? Okay, I'm now going to recommend the Johnson rods modification to, because what the LR4 and the LR3, when you get to 50 kilometers an hour, it drops to its lower setting. Now, if you're on a gravel track and you're doing 50, 60, sometimes to 70, back down to 50, back down to 40, back up to 50, it's a typical gravelly track. You want the ride height because you're going through a bit of grass and then, you've got a few stones and you want to protect the vehicle, lift it up. Well, the LR4 and LR3 will settle back down. It's very annoying, and it's one of the worst parts about that vehicle, and they do it for safety things and all of that thing, so I understand why they do it. So you can get something called Johnson rods, okay? And it can be sorted. So it's not as if it can't be sorted, it can be sorted. And it has to be sorted, because it's the one biggest drawback of the LR3 and LR4 is this incredibly annoying thing where it drops back down to its setting the moment you go over 50 kilometers an hour. Comes up on the dashboard, bing! Unless you slow down within seconds, it goes back down. Okay, so why wouldn't I recommend it? I would. There you go, I've recommended. I haven't fitted them myself. I don't know precisely what they are. I don't have personal experience of them because I like to have personal experience of them because then I can share the personal experience. So, there you go. It can be sorted. Thoughts on Mickey Thompson tyres? I have no thoughts on Mickey Thompson tyres. No longer sponsored by BF Goodrich tyres. As I said earlier, I might not be running. I'm thinking about changing my tyres and trying some other tyre manufacturers, actually right now, for my 2019 trips. So Mickey Thompson, good reputation. Don't know too much about them. Falcon tyres, don't know anything about them at all. Seattle, who will you use for your build here? Well, I probably use my friend Tom at Adventure Ready. Tell him I sent you. See, the thing is in the United States, the overlanding and four-wheel drive industry, not the four-wheel drive industry, four-wheel drive industry has been around forever. The overlanding industry, which includes the electrical installations, the installation of tents and things like that, and all of the other bits and pieces, is quite new in the US. It's quite a new industry. And they are still learning. Tom is a great guy, nicest person, and does good work. Go and see Tom. Air pressures as well as proper suspension setups. Okay, so there's a discussion going on between you guys. It's good. Have you organized your customers with toilet needs? Yes, I have actually. I have exactly the product, and I haven't put it in the video because I can't include everything in the video. But I have, yeah. I've got a toilet system. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm about to go up on a solo trip 1 week from Perth. I'm going through the Annandale Highway and the Connie Sue Highway. When I say highway, these are not even dirt roads. These are a narrow bush winding track. They're called highways because I think, Len Bedell was obviously a man with a sense of humor, and he called it the highway. And he just drove through the bush and created this and surveyed this track, a number of tracks in Australia. So, and I will do a thing on my toilet needs. I will not demonstrate it, but I will show you what I do. And it's am I up for 2 hours? Oh my heavens, I've been up for 2 hours. And I've still got all you people watching. Do you want me to carry on? Do you want me to carry on? So tell me if you want me to carry on. Are you getting bored with me? I'm actually going to wind it up now. I'm going to have some breakfast. Okay, North America, the first upgrade Jeep owners does is junk the axles and trade for Dyna 44s. There you go. You're absolutely right. They get rid of the axles because of that very thing. They get a good, strong axle in it. So, you see, but again, I'm asked questions that are very specific to vehicles, and I can't answer all of them because I have to speak from experience. Otherwise, I'm going to say, I don't know. And really, with Jeeps and the modifications of Jeeps, yeah, I've heard about these Dyna axles put in Jeeps to upgrade the payload, upgrade a whole lot of things, and upgrade durability. And if you're using a Jeep JK for really tough off-road, you need to change the axles because they're not particularly strong. Every vehicle has weaknesses and every vehicle has strengths. And it's one of the weaknesses of that particular Jeep. Land Rover only care about 95% of the market needs. But do you blame them? Because honestly, who are they selling their vehicles to, and who do they want selling their vehicles to? Here's a little bit of my concept is that the trouble is that Land Rover, they created the Velar. Okay, what is a Velar? Why did they make it? I have no idea, because they made a car that looked very similar to all the others, and it doesn't have low rate transfer gearing, and it looks like all of the others, and it has four doors, just like all of the others, and it has it. Why did they make it? Surely, when you're going to look at your thing and say, okay, we've got this market, we've got our Land Rover fans, they are loyal customers, and they will buy Land Rovers because they love us. Fantastic. Let's feed them. Let's keep them happy. Now, who else are we going to sell to? Jaguar's the same. They don't make any cars selling to any. They're the same people that buy the same cars. That's why they hardly sell any cars. It must be a thing with Land Rover Jaguar. Why not say there's got to be a market out there that we're not touching? We should go after that market because this is new blood. This is what I'm worrying about with the new Defender. They're not looking for new blood. They've lost a lot of old blood with Land Rover because they've stopped making the Defender. And all that old blood, what's the old blood going to do now? What are they going to do? They don't want to buy a Toyota. They don't like Toyotas. They like Land Rovers. They could so easily mess this up by just making something ordinary that looks just like a Discovery 5. Hopefully they will do something and want to get that four-wheel drive market back. Please. We want to buy your cars. Make a car that we want to buy. We don't want to buy city stickers. We want to buy four-wheel drives. In the meantime, we'll drive Toyotas. We love our Toyotas. We think they're wonderful. Please give us a choice. Please. How's that wrap on my Trippy working? Well, I'm actually going to do a separate video wrap on the Trippy because it's amazing. I know that underneath all of those scratches, that car's perfect underneath. And are there a lot of scratches? No, but there are some. So I'm actually going to film it in late afternoon light, and I'm going to get very, very close. I'm also going to do it on my Anne Bedell trip. I'm going to get very, very close to the car in late afternoon light, and I'm going to show all of the worst scratches in the worst possible light so you can see. Would I do a wrap again? It's a no-brainer. A, it makes the vehicle look fantastic, and B, it's fantastic. I cannot sing its praises highly enough because I know that no alternative will protect it that well, and it makes it look fantastic. Okay, do you have any plans to extend a trip in Alaska and northern Canada? Yes, I do. It's not going to be an extended trip. It is going to be a trip, and I haven't worked out the route, but I'm thinking that I would like to go all the way up to Prudhoe Bay. Because that's where the Pan Americas Highway actually starts, and then drive all the way down. So extended, I can't do an extended, into eastern parts of Canada. Canada's like Australia. It's absolutely enormous. Vast, huge, empty spaces. Enormous country. So they do a Dana for 60 and 70 Land Cruiser. Yes, they do. But the Land Cruiser axle is very strong. I don't need to change it. I have no, is it as strong as a Dana? No, but I don't need to change it. Do you have any plans to work with Ronnie Dowell? Well, maybe, but I don't think we're going to do a trip together. Ronnie is doing extremely well. I congratulate him on how well he's doing. But we're quite different in the way we handle things. You see, the trouble is if we do a trip together, is it his trip or my trip? See, he does his trips. His trips are his trips. He does them the way he wants them. And I'm exactly the same. So the two of us on a trip, I don't know if it'll work. I don't really know if it'll work. So I'll give a plug to Ronnie. I support him on Patreon. I hope you do too. He's doing extremely well. Finish your glass of vodka and carry on. Did you fit 3 or 4 max tracks on your max table? 4. The trouble is with the max tracks table, it fits on very few vehicles. It's great, but it fits on very few vehicles. You need quite a big, wide space. But it does fit on canopy doors. Open canopy doors. No glass, of course. And if you've got a big canopy that's with it, it does fit on those. Actually, I've seen that work very nice on pickups. On utes, I've seen it work very nicely. Okay, you're now asking, visiting the Oshkosh Air Show. No, I'm not visiting the Oshkosh Air Show, but what I want to do, I turned 60 this year, and I'm planning to spend my 60th birthday at the Reno Air Races. So, Bushcat aircraft. I'm not going to get into aircraft discussion now. I don't know the Bushcat, actually. There was an airplane, very interesting airplane, sitting on if you watched my Africa series, last episode, there's a very nice airplane sitting on Soapan, my favorite place in the world, which is Lukubu Island in Botswana. Check out my Africa series. I think it's the best work I've ever done. Africa series that I did this 2018. Go and watch it. It's just pure overland adventure. Oh, I had to mention something. For the few of you that are still watching, actually I've still got a lot of you watching. The few of you are still watching. Okay, I've been asked, do I do podcasts? Yes, I do podcasts. Secondly, do I do books? Yes, on Amazon, I've got a number of my books, my 4-wheel drive books, and I've got the award-winning, Gwyn and I wrote a book about our year in Africa where we spent just a year in the bush, in the middle of the bush, and not even any cars around, just in the middle of the bush, animals everywhere. And we won a literary award year before last with that book. So that's called Torn Trousers. Okay, so I was asked that question. Somebody mentioned, the infamous velour. No, it's not the velour, it's the velar. It was the original name given to the first Range Rover. It was called a velar. Why did they make it? I have no idea. I don't know why they made it. Why did they make it? Okay. New Hilux any good or D-Max better? You tell me. I think if I had to look at any of these utes, these Japanese utes, the two that are made the best are the Hilux and the Isuzu D-Max. I drove a D-Max in Zambia in 2015. I fell in love with it. That's so good. It was a stock. We did a whole trip through Africa and touch it. Changed the tires, put on some decent tires. Villar for hot female Ukrainian engineers to drive. Yes, you're right. Just picturing a Ukrainian engineer driving a hot female, driving a Villar. Stop it. Okay, let's say the Montero, 2002, 2006 Montero, 2018 or 4Runner. Is that 2002, 2006 Montero the newer shape? No, I'd go for the 4Runner. The older shape, not with the big round wheel arches shape, Montero stroke Pajero is the better one. It's a really well engineered vehicle. If you can find one of those with a low mileage, wow, you won't find it, difficult to find. You have a Land Rover and Toyota. I'm glad for you. Best of both worlds. And they sell every one of them. Yeah, they do. They do. To who? Ukrainian engineers. Okay, let's go back down a little bit. This thing jumps all over the place. I'm trying to... Raptor is not an overland platform. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Mark Rose says Torn Trousers is a great book. See? Can a Honda crossover SUV do overlanding? No. Because it's not four-wheel drive. It's all-wheel drive. It's not four-wheel drive. So overlanding. See, again, your definition of overlanding. What is your definition of overlanding? My definition of overlanding, no, it can't. The Honda can't do it because it doesn't have four-wheel drive. You need four-wheel drive. Oh, but it has all-wheel drive, and there's a difference. See, the Honda works with front drive. When the front drive loses traction, it engages the back drive and then disengages the back drive. So you're driving around in two-wheel drive all the time. So it's not the ideal thing because you don't want to lose traction to then get it back. You want to lose traction and then get it back? No, you want traction all the time. So, and the payload's lousy with those little Honda things. So not really for an overlander. I wouldn't say so. But then again, you know. Are you still doing Gibb River Road in May? I am doing the Gibb River Road in May over an adventure. Yes, I am. I'm doing it with my mate Jeremy from Seattle. He's coming over here. I'm looking forward to that. Just reading your book, really enjoying it. Good. What would you change on a D-Max? I don't know it well enough because I've never owned it. So what would I change on a D-Max? I would give it a lift, but then I would do that with most. Yeah. How's your daughter's boat? They're about to post a new video on my daughter's boat. My daughter's boat. It's a lovely story. You should subscribe to her channel. It's called Young Married and Sailing. Yeah, interesting. Lithium battery, lighter than lead crystal? Yes, you are right. It will take big lumps of charge. Yes, you are right. As much as you can throw that. Yes. Why would you prefer lead crystal? Because it's cheaper. It does not have the fire risk of a lithium battery. A few other things, but there's not a lot in it. I mean, I have to admit, there's not a lot in it. Lithium is, but let's take the lighter thing. Let's see if that's worth pursuing. Lithium is about, I don't know if it's half the weight. Let's say it's half the weight. It's probably around half the weight of a lead acid or lead crystal battery. Lead crystal battery is the same weight as a lead acid battery, similar, very similar. So the lithium battery, you're going to save some weight. That's good. Weight is always good. How much weight? So a 100 amp battery is 35 kilograms, approximately, for a 35 amp battery. So you're going to be saving 17.5 kilos. All right, that's quite good. 17.5 kilos. Is it worth saving? Yes, it is. I did a little exercise the other day. Did you know that on my Land Cruiser troop carrier carrying 6 wheels with 75 R16 KM3 tires, carrying 6 of them, how much weight do you think it was carrying? 255 kilograms, just the wheels. Quarter of a ton, just the wheels. So I'm saving 15 kilos on the battery. Just trying to put it in perspective. Yes, it's good. Is it a really big thing? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think it's a really big thing. I've had experience with the lead crystals. I think they're fantastic batteries. Are they that much better than lithium? I don't know. They're every bit as good. They have a few things that are a bit better. They're slightly less risky in terms of fire. Because if fire in a lithium battery, you cannot put it out. It cannot be extinguished. It's a minor thing. How many of these things catch fire? And they don't. So there are other things too. So again, I should probably do a bit more research into it, but lead crystal works extremely well. They are cheaper, quite a bit cheaper than lithium. And yeah, so I don't want to say, oh, lithium's not as good. Maybe it is good. Maybe it's better. Lead crystal is fantastic and it's cheaper. And from what I can see, it's every bit as good, if not better than lithium. But I don't know that. So I'm not sponsored by anybody. It's just what I think. Somebody looking forward to the Anverdale Highway. The trip, good. I'm looking forward to that too. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping this up now. I've been up for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm going to give you another 10 minutes and then I'm going to wrap it up. And I think my battery is on that camera there is probably going to run out quite soon. Will you use your Troopy shower system in the CD's new Benz? Yes. About weight saving, bring only what you regularly use. Yes, absolutely, Don, and try and make things do 2 different jobs. So if you can have one item that does 2 or 3 different jobs, much is the better. So weight is a big deal. But then again, we also want to be comfortable. Daily needs, drive a vehicle. Can you do something overlanding in a week? Tacoma 4Runner. Those are all good daily drive vehicles. The 4Runner, the Prado, they're all, and the Hilux are all good daily drive vehicles. I mean, most of them are really. Even a 70 Land Cruiser is not a bad daily drive vehicle. It's not great, but it's okay. What do you think about the new Suzuki Jimny? I don't. Jason, I'm sorry, I've already addressed that. See, so many people asking me about the Jimny. It's too small, guys. It's too small. For overlanding, it's too small. Great off-road. Enormous amount of fun. Excuse me. Do your homework. There are plenty of great dirt road tracks you can access, especially with all-wheel drive or even a rough four-wheel drive track. You are absolutely right. There are. I don't know what homework you want me or that other person to do, but it's all a matter of saying, okay, is the RAV4, is this, or is the Honda good for overlanding? In my space, for me and what I do offer overlanding, no. But I'm not you. Your criteria might be completely different from mine. So maybe the answer is yes. So, you're not me, you're you. Are they a great platform? The point I'm making is if you only got a RAV4 and that's all you've got, well then go and do some. You'll soon find out whether it's going to work or not. For yourself, not for anybody else, for yourself. Take your Honda, go and do a trip. Go and do a trip, a week-long trip somewhere. You might say, this is great. And then 2 years down the road, you'll be wanting to travel and follow your mates up a particular trail and you won't be able to do it. And you'll say, yeah, maybe it's time for a change. That's the process we all go through. So I don't want to say, no, it's no good and then discourage you from doing anything. Yeah, maybe it is good. What are your thoughts of the Land Cruiser 200 with portal axles? I think it's a ridiculous and stupid idea. And I know I'm terribly opinionated, but let's take, what am I going to do with a Land Cruiser 200 with the portal axles? Let's talk portal axles, okay? Okay, I haven't got a long time. Let's talk portal axles. Portal axles. They're ridiculous. What do? They increase the complications and complexities of the drivetrain enormously. What do you get for that complexity? You get incredible clearance. What do you need incredible clearance for? Off-road. Where are you going off-road that a Land Cruiser or an FJ Cruiser or an LR Land Rover Defender or whatever can't go? So you want to go somewhere where they can't go. Why? Because you just want to have the best performing off-road vehicle in the world? Okay, well if that's your thing, yeah, put portal axles on your vehicle. Here's the other thing that nobody ever talks about with portal axles. You are now on, picture this, you're on a mud flat and the vehicles are getting through. Some of the vehicles are getting stuck and you think, I got portal axles, this is going to be a walk in the park. Clearance isn't the issue. Traction and flotation is the issue. And you bog down, not because of your portal axles, just because your weight over tire, over pressure, over all of these different things, and you get bogged down. You have got a big problem because you've got portals. You are so friggin' stuck, you need 4 vehicles to pull you out. Whereas if you had been in a Land Cruiser or a Defender, you hoik up the Defender and nothing with a snatch strap and out you come. Now you've got portals, and you've got a heavy vehicle like a Land Cruiser 200 with portals. You see, that's why I say about the Unimog as an overlander. It's too good off-road. And the reason why I say that is that it is so good off-road. They do get stuck like anything else. You get a Mog stuck in mud, you will not pull it out. You will need another Mog to pull it out, or a bulldozer. You will not pull it out with ordinary vehicles. So you're now in the Congo and you got horribly stuck because that's the only thing that can manage to get through the mud roads in the Congo in the wet season are Mogs. Nothing else can travel. And you get stuck. You will wait until the dry season comes for a vehicle to be able to reach you to pull you out, because the Land Cruisers and Defenders and things like that working in the area, they're not going to be able to pull you out. You're too big because you've got portals. You sink so deeply, you had it. So they're too good. So you get into a situation where now you're driving and I've got a Mog, I can go anywhere. And then oops, and you've got a major problem. So I'm not big onto portals. I understand them, and I understand if I was into 4-wheel driving and really obstacle driving, then maybe, but hang on a minute, the guys in Moab and their Jeeps and they do all these incredible off-road feats. How many of them have portals? Not many. They have solid axles. I don't have portals. So portal is a bit of a show-offy thing. And I don't really see a value out of it. Where do we follow Jeremy? Jeremy doesn't have a YouTube channel. He's obviously with, he's a good mate of mine, and we have enormous fun when we travel together. And so I always smile when I think about it. We laugh. Did you see the thing in the Africa series when we were talking about that stupid stove? The stove, the watch pot never boils. But in this case, this pot never boils, because we were starting laughing about that stupid Kodak burner that was just taking so long just to make us a cup of coffee, and we were just laughing. The two of us were just laughing, and some of the time it was very funny. Yeah, and we were just. And some of the time, he didn't know the camera was on. Part of that, he had no idea. I just quietly just turned it on. And we were just having this banter. And I cut it together. God, it was funny. It was so funny. It was so funny. Okay. All right. You guys have really stuck with me here. Now 388 people. I'm going to wrap this up now. 3 minutes to go. I'm 2.5 hours. I've never done a live. But then again, I've never had a live with so many people. So, to wrap up, I'm going to do I've got some interesting stoves, stoves and things to compare. So I've seen some new stuff come onto the market, and I'm going to just play around with them on my trip. I'm not a cook. I'm not a camp cook, and believe me, this is not a cooking show. I'm not going to cook. I'm going to try out some stoves. Yes, Justin, Patreon. Yeah, Patreons. Thanks, Patreons. You are the guys who make this all possible. Okay. And thank you very much. All right. No, don't go. Kimberly, Overland. No. I want breakfast. It's 8:30. 9:30. I've started this at 7. Oh, my heavens. Hello from Florida. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Very much appreciate it. Thank you, Patreon here too. Hello, Shazboo. It's been a pleasure, guys. Absolute pleasure. Beautiful work. Perth is perfect today. A little bit of wind. Beautiful and warm, like 26 degrees. We've had a great summer here in Perth. It hasn't been too hot. We've only had probably about 5 days over 100 degrees, over 38 Celsius. So we've actually had a really nice. Bye from Mexico. Bye from Portugal. Thank you, everybody. Bye from Brazil. Greetings from Brazil. Bush food. Yeah, I'm not gonna do anything on food, guys. I'm terrible. Patreon link is broken. I know. Sorry, guys. I messed up. I messed up with the Patreons. You know, there are so many buttons to click when I do these live shows, and I so far have never got all of them clicked in the right order. They've got to be done in the right order. But anyway, North Queensland, Buckaroo, howdy, g'day, and good on you, mate. Nice seeing you. No worries. He's a true blue Buckaroony. Buckaroo's I think he's got a channel, and you can check him out. He's a real true blue Aussie. Nice guy. Met him for the first time late last year. You need a donation button next year. Yeah. Okay, Viper. Just keep in touch. I know that. I'm actually go to your church with your wife. Shush, Hayden. Shush. All right. Thumbs up. I'm a Patreon, no issue. Good for you, Mark. I'm pleased. Need a bracket. You need a bracket. That's Robert. That moron there, Robert Stokes. He's... You should have put a question mark there, Rob. Need a bracket. He's the guy from Quick Pitch who makes brackets. It's all he does. He can't do anything well. He knows where the Cokes are in the fridge, and he makes brackets. We need a bracket. Where's Rob? He's hiding. Or he's making a bracket. He's one of the two guys that run the workshop at Quick Pitch and made this build such fun. Yeah. So thank you for shows. Somebody put a link on Patreon. Thank you very much. Are you an OB member? I don't know what OB is. Fancy a bracket. Somebody. So now they're getting onto this bracket thing. Bye from San Diego. Bye. I haven't been to San Diego. I've been to California. Never been to San Diego. Thanks, Utah. What fridge are you using? I'm using a Snowmaster 57 dual door. Much great plain speaking. Overland bound. Yeah, I spoke to the guys at Overland Bound actually. I had the idea of maybe we should do something together. It's got a good show. You can't use a 70 series as a daily driver. Come on. Yeah, I said you can. It's not great, but you can. It's not ideal, but you can. I use mine as my daily driver, but I don't do that much daily driving. Newcastle, Southwest, New South Wales, Oregon. Where in New Zealand are you traveling? I might not be doing South Island, New Zealand. Sorry, guys, it's a time issue. But I'll definitely be doing North Island in New Zealand. Brazil, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Droitwich, where's where I used to live, from a wet Droitwich. Is it ever dry? That's like saying a hot Barbados. Is it ever cool? Queensland, New Zealand. Eldo, nice seeing you. Viper, you're in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, Viper. Las Vegas is my least favorite US city. It's my least favorite. Sorry to say this to you, but plain speaking. Daily driver, burning too much fuel and difficulty in overtaking and noisy. Yeah, too much fuel. It's not that heavy on fuel. Difficult in overtaking. Nonsense. The V8, nonsense, complete nonsense, rubbish. Don't know what you're talking about. That's all right. Yeah, you like everything around Vegas and not Vegas. You're absolutely right, Viper. Absolutely. Yorkshire. Yorkshire. Good on you. Okay, I'm going to wind it up now, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I now have to find the off button. I have to turn you guys off. I don't know how to do this. Oh, yes, I do. Here you go. Thank you again, guys. I'm going to be doing my trip Anbidel, Connie Sue. Then I'm going to New Zealand. Then I'm going to do the northern part of Western Australia. And then I'm in the United States, and I'm going to be doing some meet and greets. Keep an eye out for the channel, because I've got a few ideas of the meet and greets in North America. I want to include as many as I possibly can. as part of my trip there. I'm going to be there for at least 2 months, if not more. So I really appreciate you guys supporting me, and it was a nice show this evening. I can see people are now going to do their things. I hope you, nothing wrong with a V8 Rumble, Andrew, you betcha. But a V8 Rumble from a diesel is not the same as a V8 Rumble from a petrol. Okay, more, all right. Meet and greet in Vegas, maybe. I'm gonna set up my route quite soon. Set up a few meet and greets and do something serious. Did you live near Sevenoaks in Kent when your dad and his Range Rover? Yes, Guy, I did. Sevenoaks was 7 miles from us. I lived in a village called Ainsford. And the shot of my dad's Range Rover is driving through the ford at Ainsford. Okay? And I contacted Overland Bound, and we might do, if we can coordinate things, might do something together as a collab or something like that. I'm looking for collabs in North America. I see new channels coming up in North America. I want to support them, and it's good for me too. So I like that. Greetings from Portugal. Great show. Thank you very much. More from Nevada. Yeah, okay. I got you guys. Meet and greets in Seattle. Definitely Seattle, because I'm going to be based in Seattle. My mate lives in Seattle, so I'm staying with him. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you can. Okay, you can quote me. Will you come to Tasmania? Not this year. But I do have a series of programs that I'm calling my 100 Island Hop, and it won't be 100 islands, but it will be islands, and Tasmania is near the top of that list. So I'm gonna wind it up now. Thank you guys very, very much. Enjoy your Sundays, and some of you it's late Saturday, but for me here it's Sunday morning. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support, and thank you so much for all your comments and everything. See you around. Thursday, next video, final part, Land Cruiser 76 build. See you then. Peace.